Okay. Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody here. We acknowledge the land upon which we work and live, the First Nations and their nations, and recognize their connection to the land, water, and community. We continue to learn, listen, and grow together. Looks like we have a full house tonight. Welcome and come on in. There's a few seats down front here. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order and approve of the agenda, please.
Be it hereby resolved that the agenda for the October 1st, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted as printed and circulated.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councilor Barnes, second by Councilor Banbury. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Not seeing any. And minutes for September 17th.
Be it hereby resolved that the minutes of the September 17th, 2025 regular meeting of council be adopted as printed and circulated.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councilor Banbury, second by Councilor Barnes. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, any business arising from the minutes? Not seeing any. I'm going to change the order up a little bit since we have a lot of people here tonight. So we have a delegation that I'm going to move forward because I have a feeling that the planning matter is going to be lengthy. So I'm going to move them up first. Okay, okay, Megan, if you want to come up, please. Thank you. I think we have somebody virtually as well. There's one chair up front here. If you would like to sit up here, you're welcome. Okay, welcome, Megan.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of Council. We've included a package of information in your agenda today that summarizes draft findings of the study to update the county's growth forecasts and settlement area land needs. So the current growth forecasts that we've been working with were adopted by County Council in 2020, and since that last study, there has been significant growth in the county, which warrants updates to these forecasts and the assessment of the amount of land needed to accommodate growth. The county initiated the current study in 2024, and it's being undertaken by Watson and Associates. County Council received the draft population, household, and employment growth forecasts in November 2024 and authorized planning staff to undertake the remainder of the project based on those forecasts. The County Council report was circulated to area municipal councils, and we're now consulting on the draft land needs assessment. So Jamie Cook from Watson Associates is joining us virtually to present the findings of the project. The findings presented today are draft, and we're seeking feedback from local councils. And we've been meeting with various groups, and we'll make presentations to all the area municipal councils through September and October. And we're aiming to present the findings to County Council in November. So through the mayor, I would now ask Jamie to start his presentation.
Welcome, Jamie. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me as well?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Maybe I can turn my volume down a little bit. You still hear me now?
Yeah, you're perfect for us here.
Okay, great. Okay. So I see this, the presentation is being shared on the screen. Do you see that presentation?
Oh, yes, sorry, it is. Yep.
Okay, great. Okay. All right. So good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. Well, I am getting some feedback here. Is there any way that you could turn your volume down a tiny bit?
Yeah. Is that any better?
Testing. Yes, I don't have any feedback. Can you hear me okay, so?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, it's coming back, but I'll do my best to try to just work through this.
I wonder,
Okay, so
just hold on just half a second. I just wonder if we're getting feedback through our mics.
Okay.
Could we shut our mics off just while he presents, and then we'll go from there? Is that, well, we probably can't hear me now, though.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Yes.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I'm still getting it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I can try taking my mic off, but the sound won't be as, or my headphones off.
We might as well turn our mics back on, I guess. Yeah, you're good here with all of us.
Okay, I'm gonna try to work through this. Okay, so afternoon, Mayor, members of council. Thank you, Megan. So I'm going to walk through our draft findings of our land use assessment and growth analysis report. So this is just really hard on me. I'm going to.
He's probably hearing. He's getting an echo.
Hmm?
He's getting an echo.
Yeah, he's getting an
Can you hear me
echo.
okay now?
Yep, we're okay.
Okay. I'm going to try to do it without my headphones. Okay, so to just provide an overview, we're preparing updates to our growth analysis and land needs study for the County of Oxford. The study was last updated in 2020, and since that time we've seen significant growth pressures within the county, and that's just really causing an update to the study. A couple of key components of this study include growth forecasts for the county and allocations by area municipality. We've also prepared an intensification analysis to identify short-term opportunities to accommodate intensification in the county in priority growth areas and the remaining areas of areas that are in the built-up area. From there, we prepare a long-term land use assessment that looks at community area lands, currently areas where people live, and common areas where people work, industrial type development. And we've done this over a 20 to 30 year planning time planning policy. And then from there, we've identified a number of strategic growth recommendations to direct and inform long-term growth and growth management in the county over a 30+ year time horizon. So the next slide, I just wanted to comment a bit on the provincial policy context that we've undertaken this in. So this work's been carried out within the framework of the 2024 provincial planning statement. This PPS was updated and came forth in October of 2024. And essentially this PPS guides land use planning in Ontario. The PPS was ultimately updated to integrate the last updated 2020 growth plan and the 2020 provincial planning statement into one integrated document. It's generally intended to be a more outcome-based and less prescriptive approach to planning. There's a number of policies in this document that I won't be able to get into in detail today, but there's 3 that I wanted to mention that are relevant to this growth management strategy. First is that the PBS requires that we look at the Ministry of Finance growth projections as a base, and we modified the projections as appropriate. So we have done that, and I'll speak to that at the end of the presentation. It also identifies that we can plan and designate land within official plans for a 20 to 30 year planning horizon. It also identifies that we can look longer for employment lands, but we're limited to 30 years for residential development. So in a study like this, we can do projections and we can identify needs for services or infrastructure capacity much longer than the 30-year period, but we're limited to designate lands in urban areas to a 30-year period. And the last thing I just wanted to mention here was that the province released a provincial methodology guideline that was proposed in August. That updates a document very outdated. The last time the province provided guidelines on this was in the mid-90s. The guidelines are somewhat similar to those 1995 guidelines, but there are some differences that we've noted in the report that you'll see the report as it's released. And then lastly, all this work is then being done to inform the official plan at the county level with respect to growth management policy. So there's a couple of key demographic and growth drivers that I wanted to lay out in the next few slides. The first kind of data I want to look at was migration. So this is a graph that identifies long-term net migration trends within Oxford County over the last 25 years or so. And what you see on this graph is a big increase in the amount of migration to the bars that were identified here on this chart. And what really jumps out is the dark blue. And that dark blue is what that represents is net intra-provincial migration. Migration coming from other parts of Ontario to Oxford County. And that's really been the key driver of growth over the last decade and beyond. You can see in the light blue, international migration is becoming a more significant component, but it's still nowhere near having the significance of inter-provincial migration when we talk about what's driving population growth to Oxford County. And when we look at where is that interprovincial migration coming from the rest of the province, we can see on the left, sorry, on the right, on the pie chart, that about half of that growth is coming from the western area of the Greater Golden Horseshoe. So that's essentially central Ontario. It covers the Greater Toronto-Hamilton area, as well as the Greater Golden Horseshoe Outer Ring, areas like Guelph and Waterloo, and Brant County, for example. And so this area of Ontario is essentially the fastest growing area of Ontario. The west side being even faster growing than the GTA as a whole. And Oxford County is located directly to the west of that along the R1 corridor. So the location of Oxford County, this large, fast growing area, has really been the key driver of growth has been for Oxford County over this 10 to 15 year period. And the next slide just provides a little more detail on some of these key drivers of growth. So the main message really here is that it's all about outward growth pressure from the Greater Golden Horseshoe. And that outward growth pressure has really been driven by housing needs from a growing population within the Greater Golden Horseshoe and the lack of affordable housing options, particularly for grade-related housing, to accommodate that growing population. So it's that sort of drive and qualify phenomenon that we've been seeing, which pushing growth rates further out of the Greater Golden Horseshoe, down into Oxford and Middlesex and along that 401 corridor region. That was essentially accelerated during the COVID period, and we do anticipate that it will continue to be growing. This area will be growing at a faster rate than what we've been seeing in the past. There's a number of other drivers here that are identified in the schematic in these hexagons. If I start with the purple one there, identified as local industrial regional economic opportunities, the lower left area of the schematic. What I want to emphasize is that this trend has really been higher growth and stronger economic activity has been something that's been occurring since about 2015, the recovery from the financial crisis, 2008-9. We saw stronger economic growth in the outward regions of the GPH and into these other areas of southern Ontario. We saw stabilization of manufacturing. So we've seen economic growth, which has been driving that, part of what's been driving that net migration area. I mentioned the strategic location, which is the next hexagon above. When we look at how areas are growing in southern Ontario, typically locations that are this type are located along the 401 corridor or a major foreign series highways have a higher growth rate. When we see, when we look at municipalities that are further away from that corridor, that growth rate starts to typically decline. So with that migration, we've seen population growth in all age groups, and that's driving demand for a broader range of housing types to accommodate young adults, families, as well as seniors. We've also seen significant technological change, which was accelerated during COVID. Probably the big one to mention is the increased hybrid work opportunities we've seen and the work from home that were really accelerated through technological advancement during the COVID period. So that's giving commuters opportunities to work at home, work in a hybrid environment, and still potentially move into major employment markets within a commuting distance from Oxford County. The county also has a vibrant rural economy with over 2,000 active farms, which also are critical to the local and regional economy. And lastly, quality of life is increasingly a key factor influencing location decisions for both businesses and residents. So that really sets the stage for the overall growth forecast that we've prepared for the county and for Blandford-Blenheim. So the next slide summarizes that forecast. So this is the long-term forecast for Oxford County. So again, we utilized the Ministry of Finance projections. We were last updated in 2025. We had access to the 2024 Ministry of Finance when this work was done. I would note that the province has started to reduce its forecast fairly steadily since 2023 because of reductions in federal immigration policy. But we're not seeing that reduction really manifesting in the Oxford County numbers. They're coming down slightly, but they're still quite strong. So we've looked at that forecast. We've identified it is ambitious, but it is a reasonable long-term projection. for the purposes of the long-range land use planning. It identifies a 51 population of about 202,000. We've extended that out to a 2061 period, and that identifies a long-term growth rate of about 1.4%. So to put that into context, the province is growing at a rate of about 1.1%. So Oxford County does represent one of the faster growing counties or broader regions within Ontario. We also looked at employment on the next slide. In a similar fashion, we projected out to a 2061 period. The Ministry of Finance does not prepare long-term employment forecasts, so these have been prepared by Watson. We've identified an employment increase of about just under 44,000 jobs. A lot of that employment growth relates to the demand for population-related employment, like retail, institutional, and other personal service uses to accommodate that that population forecast. But we've also identified about 40% of these jobs to be in the industrial sector, sectors like manufacturing, logistics, wholesale trade, transportation, construction, utilities. And then about 20% of the job forecast has also been identified in work from home and off-site employment. The next slide gets into the allocations of population and employment. So we've derived our allocations based on a number of supply and demand factors that I won't get into in detail today. Ultimately, Blandford-Blenheim represents about 4% of the population growth that we identified for the county, and about 3% of the employment growth. So the next slide identifies, well, what does that translate into the population for Blandford-Blenheim? You can see here that the population is identified to grow by about 3,500 people between 2021 and 2061. So we're projected to reach a population of about 11,400 by 2061. So that's a rate of growth of 0.9% annually. So we're growing, projected to grow slower than the county as a whole, but faster than what we've been experiencing growth. And then similarly, we've also projected the long-term employment growth for Blandford-Blenheim. You can see here that we did see a fairly steady decline in jobs between 2011 and 16. A fairly typical situation we saw in many municipalities across Ontario during the time period. As I mentioned, we had a significant economic downturn back in late 2009. We saw a lot of steady of manufacturing jobs during that time period. We saw a steady recovery right around that 2015-2016 period, which you can see. And since that time, we've seen fairly steady employment growth up until now, until 2024. We're projecting a growth rate of about 1.2% annually, which would add about 1,000 jobs to Blandford-Blenheim over that long-term plan. So the next few slides gets into the approach to the land use assessment. So now that we've identified the growth for Blandford-Blenheim, now we're looking at what are the urban land requirements. And so essentially what we've done is we've broken down the population, housing, and employment into urban areas. So these are service villages and large urban centers. In this case, for Blandford-Blenheim, the urban villages are Drumbo and Platteville. And then we have unserved settlement areas and remaining rural areas. The majority of the growth is being identified in the urban areas. And then within the urban areas, we have two buckets. We essentially have the community area. These are areas where people live. And there's some retail and also community servicing employment like education and healthcare. And then we have the employment areas, which are typically industrial type areas. So then the community area can be broken down further into the built up areas. These are areas that were largely built as of 2006, which was the starting point of the delineation of this built up area. And those built up areas are then broken down between nodes and corridors, and then remaining built up areas. And then the remaining area of the living area, the community area, is the greenfield area. So these are areas that are inside the urban boundary of Drumbo and Platteville that are outside of areas that are built. So these are generally areas where we have vacant lands that are available for urban development that are not yet planned today. So on the next slide, we break down that forecast in terms of the housing growth. So we identified it was 38 units a year in total for Blandford-Blenheim. We go 5 units a year been identified in the rural area, and with 33 units a year in the urban areas of Crumble and Plattsville. And we identified an intensification target in that built-up area of 15%, which is about 6 units a year, and then the rest is being allocated to the greenfield areas. So the question that we're trying to solve for here is, do the greenfield areas have enough capacity to accommodate the growth forecast going forward, or do we need more urban land to accommodate this forecast all the way out to a 30-year period? I'll get to that answer in a few minutes. The next slide gets into the employment breakdown. So there's really 3 types of employment categories. There's the community area, which are these areas that accommodate retail, schools, education, living area. There's also the employment areas, the industrial development, and that's about 36% of the overall employment, the community areas being over half. Then we have the remaining rural areas accommodated with 10%. We also took a fairly close look at the rural employment outlook for the county and each of the area municipalities, and that's identified in the next slide. Part of this analysis was to identify opportunities for dry industrial use in the county's service or partially serviced rural areas, recognizing that a portion of this demand will also be accommodated in the town's service building. So a couple of key considerations that I wanted to point out through this analysis is that we have identified that the county's unserviced settlement areas, they are important to the county as they do accommodate clusters of business operations, largely serving the surrounding rural areas that are essential to the county's economic growth. And while the demand for dry industrial uses are relatively limited, they do have a role to play within the unserviced villages, and in some cases, so our report does discuss the demand for dry industrial type uses. It identifies target sectors such as agriculture and related and supportive to the agricultural sector. It identifies local attributes such as parcel size, climate density, location criteria, when planning for these types of uses. And this assessment was done in the context of the 2024 PPS and the county business plan, as well as a review of best practices across Ontario. So with that, I wanted to spend a few minutes on the land use assessment, which is starting on slide 18. So when we look at the need for the community area lands, area within the living area, largely residential lands, the residential component we've identified, there is a sufficient amount of supply to accommodate growth over the next 30 years. We have noted that that supply will diminish to about a 5 hectare surplus at the end of the 30-year period, but you do have sufficient lands to accommodate the growth forecast. So what this means is that we're not proposing any urban boundary expansions in Drumgo or Plattsville at this time for residential growth. On the employment side, next slide, we have identified that there is a shortfall of employment lands to accommodate industrial type development over the next 30 years. We identified an overall shortfall of about 19 hectares of land by the end of the 30-year planning horizon. So depending on how far we go, that deficit starts to increase. We have noted that given the location of Drumgo near the 401 interchange, it is a very marketable location to consider options for either serviced or partially serviced or even dry industrial development opportunities within the area of Drumgo. And there are lands that are designated and zoned to already start to accommodate some of that. So in summary, the overall land requirement really relates to the next slide, relates to the overall need for the industrial lands and the employment lands that I just mentioned. And again, there's no identified need for any expansion for residential areas. So in conclusions on the next slide, or these next steps that I want to summarize. Over the last 2 months, we have been consulting with different parties, largely the development community. And then through the last month and into October, we have been presenting to each of the local area municipalities with respect to the key findings of this work. And then we've submitted a draft report for the county's review that we're reviewing now. Expect to see comments shortly. And then we'll be presenting our final findings of the study to county council sometime in October or November of this year. I'd like to close my presentation, and I'm happy to turn it over to council for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from council at all? Councillor Demers?
Can Jamie see us? Do I face this way or
I would face your mic.
your mic?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Hi, Jamie. Just have a couple questions for you about how population growth for Blandford-Blenheim was determined. And I'd just like to drill down on that a little bit and understand what some of the drivers are. Specifically, I'd like to understand what some of the limiting factors are. Oxford County, you're predicting or forecasting 1.4% growth, and for Blandford-Blenheim, just under 1%. So for this council, I'd like to understand what the limiting factors are that are sort of driving down our potential growth numbers.
Yes, through the mayor. It's a good question. I don't know if I would say there's necessarily limiting factors. We haven't constrained the growth in any way. We're not essentially capping the growth to existing servicing potential, although we have looked at servicing capacity as part of the development charges background study. I would say that it's really a top-down and bottom-up process. So first we're looking at, how much growth is the county expected to accommodate and why? And then ultimately, that allocation of growth really is a combination of these top-down and bottom-up factors. From a top-down perspective, one of the key factors we look at is growth and simulation. How has the area been growing in the past? How much growth would we expect Blandford-Blenheim to accommodate in the future? When we look at trends with terms of building activity and census. And then we can also look at the near-term opportunities in the supply pipeline. So how much development is currently being reviewed in active planning applications that are either draft approved or under review. We also look at how are other factors potentially driving growth or influencing growth, like its proximity to larger urban settlement areas. On the non-residential side, proximity to major infrastructure is a key aspect that has influenced growth. And then it's just a matter of looking at how things fit. Like, how does the overall growth fit within the perspective of the rest of the county? Generally, we've seen that the majority of the growth on an absolute level has been occurring within the city of Woodstock, Ingersoll, and Tilford, and we would expect that to continue. But what we're identifying is that every single municipality, including the townships, are all intended to experience stronger growth in the future than they have in the past because of this greater growth pressure that we're seeing overall for the community. And then from there, we've looked at scenarios, and then we've ultimately landed on this mid-range scenario.
Yep. Go ahead, Councillor Demers.
Just a couple follow-up questions. Thank you for that explanation. I do have concern about historical weighting on the conclusion of such a low growth rate. It's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy because this report helps to drive decisions at the county level, at the planning table. And if Blandford-Blenheim is consistently assigned sort of low growth rates, then we're never going to sort of get ahead of the curve in order to get the required infrastructure investment in Blandford-Blenheim. So as long as these reports are driving infrastructure decisions and we're consistently getting low growth rates based on history, then until we step outside of that underlying assumption, we're not going to get more aggressive growth rates in Blandford-Blenheim. And that's what concerns me, especially when I'm looking at, relative comparison to East or Tavistock, for example. They've consistently over the last 2 reports have had more aggressive numbers than ours. Even though we're right beside each other, we have similar population growth. We actually have better access to 401, the 401 corridor, so that would be an advantage. But yet, EZT has been consistently getting better growth allocations than what Blandford-Blenheim does. So I want to better understand, so go back to my original question is, what are the limiting factors that are keeping Blandford-Blenheim from getting the same kind of allocations that an East or Tavistock is?
Through the mayor, again, I would just want to reiterate that I don't see any real limiting factors. And with respect to the historical growth rate, if you go back to slide 11, I think it's important to recognize that projected growth rate over the next 40 years is well above what you've been doing historically. It's probably at a rate more than double that historical rate. So by no means since the historical rate limited the future rate of growth for Blandford-Blenheim. And I would also identify that a growth rate of 0.9% is actually fairly consistent with the overall growth rate of the province, which includes a number of very fast-growing areas that are helping to drive that growth. So I don't really think it's a limited forecast. I also would just note that there's nothing preventing Blandford-Blenheim from exceeding this forecast. You have, as long as you've got the capacity to continue to accommodate this growth, we've identified that you've got the lands over a 30-year period, and you can have a surplus by 2051 or 56 at the end of the planning horizon. There'll be probably 3 opportunities that, at least, that this will be looked at comprehensively to update this to ensure that you can prepare for accommodating this growth and more growth over the next several decades.
Yeah,
and
that's
so,
sorry,
again,
I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to state, like, the province used to use these growth projections in the growth plan as a ceiling for growth. And now what they're sort of telling us is that this is the floor. So this is sort of the minimum growth that they would really be directing you to accommodate, not the capacity. So if there's opportunity to accommodate more growth and there's a willingness to accommodate more growth, the province doesn't want to get in anyone's way, essentially, to accommodate that, as long as that growth is balanced and that we've comprehensively looked at it and we can justify the figures. But one of our goals here is to try to balance this comprehensively, looking at how it fits within the overall countywide perspective. And we don't want to overstate the growth over a 40-year period, because we've already acknowledged that this is a significant amount of growth that we're identifying for the county and for Blandford-Blenheim, well beyond anything you've ever experienced in the past.
Okay. Anybody else from council? Yeah, I have a few comments, I guess. This is the second report that's come through that's given us low growth numbers. And I remember at the last report, I brought up that how can you grow if you don't have the services? Drumbo has been waiting for waste treatment for, I don't know, I want to say 7 years or more. Just finally got it in the last year. So we couldn't grow because we didn't have any services to grow. Then I look at Plattsville, and you talked about no boundary adjustments. Plattsville is right at their edge. So once again, if Plattsville doesn't allow boundary adjustments, how do we grow? So every time we get these growth studies, it's given us low numbers. On your migration chart, one thing that stood out to me very high was where are they coming from? Waterloo, 24%. And you mentioned several times in your report about the 401 corridor. And you also mentioned about the 403. The 403 is literally 5-6 minutes from us. We have the 401 that goes right through our township, and yet we keep getting these low growth numbers all the time. I look at your one chart when it shows the population growth forecast, and from 2021 to 2026, I see 500 more people projected in there, but yet we've had no growth in any of our centers because we haven't had services in any of them. And I find it very frustrating, to be honest with you. I wasn't very happy with the report at all. I look at Drumbo. I'm going to kind of go through a little bit of each one here. I've kind of got a few. One draft approved, it's already been approved, 62 lots. There's additional phases that are anticipated. There's another one to the south of Drumbo that have 41 draft approved lot, additional phases to come there as well. Peterson Street, there's 32 registered lots there that I believe are going to start anytime soon. There's 17 townhouses also available here. There's another apartment building possibly with 10 units. There's only 2 infill lots left inside our village. I look at Plattsville. Crestridge has 89 units under construction. We just approved 115 units in draft approved for Westside Communities, which is on the south side of Plattsville. Bright has 13 units under construction right now. Princeton, the Van Wees family is becoming forward probably within the next, I would imagine, month or two. It's not draft approved yet, but I believe there's around 81 units there. There's the former school lands with 5 units there. Fazar lands are, I would imagine, are probably coming before, I don't know, within a year or two. So when you add all that up, and that's not even counting the ones that aren't here, we're at almost 472 lots. I don't know what your numbers are, but I'll use 3, which I think is probably a low number of people. That gets us at over 1,400 people already. So when I look at this thing, and we've already got 500 people when we've had no growth at all here because we didn't have services, how we're only projected to have 3,500 over the next 40 years. And don't get me wrong, I want controlled growth. I don't want us just all of a sudden to have 10,000 people here. But I find it very frustrating because when dollars are allocated to services, they're going to give it to where the growth is. They're not going to put it where it isn't. But when I look at where we are so strategically placed in Oxford County, we could probably outgrow every municipality except for the urban centers. And that's kind of my question, comment to you.
Through the mayor, appreciate your comments. This is obviously the whole point of us meeting with you is to hear your feedback and receive your input. Again, I'm happy to look at this, and like nothing is set in stone at this point. Where we have a draft set of forecasts, and we can take a look at it. I just want to reiterate that there is a significant amount of housing that we've identified over the 30-year period. It's about 1,200 units as a base, and so there's nothing to prevent you from exceeding that number. In my opinion, in the near term, you have the service capacity to accommodate growth over the next 10 to 15 years. You've got the lands to accommodate that growth at least over a 20 to 30-year period. And if you do see an acceleration of your growth beyond that, you're going to have the opportunity to relook at this within about a 7 to 8-year time period. The official plans are reviewed every 10 years, so we'll start this again probably in about 8 years at a minimum, and perhaps the county would open this up even sooner if there was reason to. So this isn't the last time you're going to have to take a look at this, but by all means, if there's a real concern that this is not even representing a floor for growth, then I'm happy to take a look and take your feedback, and we can determine how we would want to relook at this. What I will say is that at this point, I don't think we're prepared to adjust the countywide forecast. So what this would mean would be that we'd be doing some reallocations within the townships or ultimately within the county as a whole. But it is something that we could definitely take a look at.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think our CAO wanted to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you too, Jamie. I think part of the concern being expressed by members of council is that this forecasting has a large part in Just given the structure of Oxford County as the upper tier that, manages the water and wastewater infrastructure that's necessary to facilitate growth, when they're using a tool like this, it kind of does become that chicken and the egg argument as far as, we need this growth forecast to justify that future investment in infrastructure that enables us to continue to grow strategically. Jamie, I had a question just as far as the Watson methodology goes. You had mentioned that there was some consideration for projects that are in the pipeline. And when you say that, does that mean, projects that are already draft plan approved, projects that, could be coming on lands that are zoned appropriately? How do you sort of categorize that, and how much weight is put into historic building permit data? And I guess just further to that, is there any consideration for obstacles or environmental conditions that would have had an impact on historic building data, such as the servicing limitations that affected Drumbo here in that last time frame that you listed?
Yes, thank you through the mayor. Appreciate all those comments. Those are very valid points that you've raised, and concerns about being potentially too low or conservative. With respect to the forecast and the weighting on the active applications, we don't necessarily have a specific quantum and a percentage of how we would weight it, but we do give weighting to what's in that pipeline because it does provide us some direction in terms of where we would expect to see the near-term demand for urban development, probably over the next decade and beyond. And so we're looking at all forms of development in active plans, from approved developments to developments that are pending approval or where you've received an application and are reviewing that application today. We've also looked at existing supply of land to accommodate growth in areas that are currently not active. We look at historical trends, but we don't limit the forecast to historical trends, and we're not limiting the forecast to existing servicing capacity, because in most cases in the townships in many areas, our forecast would far exceed the servicing capacity for water and wastewater services. So we're really using this analysis to try to guide that demand for servicing into the future.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and to Jamie, I guess with that being said, at this point in the process, is there anything that we can do, sort of given some of the feedback that's been received by council? Is there any flexibility in adjusting that model right now, or is it fairly set?
Through the mayor, I think there's flexibility. I don't want to suggest that we have such a rigid process that we can't look at this and we can't address comments or further inputs to this. I think there might be a need for me to understand, when you say that the forecasts are low, how low, do you think? Do you think that, like, typically when we look at the range of projections that the province puts out, they have a pretty broad range. The variance from the low projections to the high projections ranges by about 25% by 2051. They go at 30 years. And so if we're looking at that sort of a range, that might be within, I'd say, a reasonable range to look at. I don't think it's reasonable that maybe you're seeing a doubling of population growth beyond what provided here in the reference forecast, but it's certainly plausible within a range of scenarios that it could be higher, by a factor of 10 to 15%. Or maybe even a little higher. I'd have to take a look. So I would not rule it out. Like, I think we have to appreciate that we're looking over a 40-year period, and while I have been doing this for a long time, and I feel I have a good feel for what I do, we don't have the precision, that we maybe would like to have when we're looking out over a 30 to 40-year period, which is one of the reasons why we come back with this pretty frequently. And I think there's also a bit of a risk that often what you find is there's some recency bias. When you have a period of high growth, the projections tend to extend those projections at a high rate. Now we're heading into more of a contraction period in the near term with economic growth, slower migration. So now you're going to see those Ministry of Finance numbers start to moderate a bit. So it is important to, keep in mind that the level of precision that we have is relatively low, and this is one of the reasons why we look to these other forecasts to help anchor our analysis, and why we monitor, and why we go back and look at this. But there's no reason why we can't take another look now at this process and see if we feel that there's a need to increase the projections.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just have a question for you too, is one thing that kind of stood out to me was you had a slide up there and it talked about meeting with area municipalities and it's September, October, and yet the draft is already gone in September before you met with the area municipalities. Wouldn't it make sense to meet with the area municipalities first and get their feedback before a draft report would be put in?
So we did meet with the area municipality staff back in, I think it was, I have to maybe defer to Megan. I think it was in June we met with the area municipal staff, and then from there we went out and met with stakeholders, so the development community, and now we're meeting with council. And we didn't receive any feedback at that time from staff to suggest that the forecasts were significantly low.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else from council? Nope, I'm not seeing any. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Be it hereby resolved that the presentation from Oxford County Planning and Watson and Associates regarding updates to the Oxford County growth forecasts and land needs assessment be received as information.
Okay, you've all heard that. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Banbury. Any comments at all? I think we probably made lots. All in favor? And opposed if any? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, sorry you all had to sit through that. We'll get to the reason you're here now. Okay.
Be it hereby resolved that council rise and go into a public meeting under the Planning Act to consider applications for official plan amendment and zone change, OP 25081 and ZN 12505, Matthew and Jacqueline Bocott, and that Mayor Peterson chair the public meeting.
Can I have a mover to seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Banbury, second by Councillor Barnes. All in favor? And opposed if any? And that's carried. And you want to read that?
During the part of the meeting where the public has the opportunity to provide input, anyone wishing to speak must come forward to the podium, state your name for the record, and then share your comments. We ask that there be no interruptions, side conversations, or calling out from the audience. No member of the public should speak during the public meeting unless they are at the podium. Everyone will have a fair opportunity to be heard in turn and respond to questions should they be asked through the chair. Thank you for your understanding and cooperation. The chair will now begin the public meeting.
Okay, and so I'll kind of run down the format because I know a lot of you don't usually come to council chambers. So we're going to present the report here by our planner. Council will ask questions of him. Then we'll have the applicant come up and present their report. We'll ask questions from there. I think they have a professional that's going to come in to speak as well. Then council's going to ask questions of him and then or her. And when that's over, they're going to stay here. And then I will go into the public meeting where anybody can come up. And if you come up to the podium there, because we have a mic so everybody can hear, state your question. Please be respectful. And then if somebody comes up and asks a question, please don't have the very next person come up and ask the same question if it's already been answered, or I'll say it's already been answered, okay? If everybody is respectful here, the meeting will go good and we'll be good to go, so. Okay. I am officially opening this public meeting, which is being held under the Planning Act for the purpose of hearing an application for official plan amendment and zone change in the Township of Blandford-Blenheim. I would like to advise those in attendance that the Ontario Land Tribunal has the power to dismiss an appeal if an appellant has not provided the council with oral submissions at a public meeting or written submission before a bylaw is passed. Pursuant to recent changes under Bill 185, appeals are now generally limited to the applicant, a registered owner, a public body, specific persons, or the minister. I would like to ask those in attendance that if they wish to receive notification of council's decision, they should sign the sheet by the door at the rear of the room, which is just right where you come in and out there. Please include your email address to receive future correspondence. I would now ask council members to state any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Not seeing any. This one application being considered today is application for official plan amendment and zone change OP 25-08-1, ZN 1-25-03, Matthew and Jacqueline Bocott for lands located at 806-012 Oxford Road 29. And Dustin, if you could present that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good afternoon, members of council, staff, and everybody in attendance here today. The applications being considered here today are for an official plan amendment and for a zone change in order to facilitate a proposed animal crematorium. Slide 1 shows the approximate location of the lands in question. As you can see on slide 1, the village of Innerkip lies to the west of the subject lands. The lands themselves are located on the south side of Oxford Road 25 and on the east side of Blandford Road. In terms of the existing conditions of the land, there is an existing building cluster on the property which contains a single detached dwelling, a pool house, and a barn. And on here you can see the approximate area that's being considered for the development of the proposed animal crematorium. It's more than 200 meters away from the cluster. In terms of the existing official plan designations, it's a little more than half is designated as agricultural reserve, while the rest of it is designated as environmental protection. You can see from this slide that the proposed area for development is located outside of the environmental protection area and inside of the agricultural reserve. The existing zoning on the property is A2, or otherwise known as General Agricultural Zone. The purpose and intent of this zoning is to ensure that lands are used for agricultural uses and to protect farmland for future use. Surrounding land uses, you'll find A1, which is limited agricultural zoning, so again, agricultural uses. And you'll also see the RE moniker, which is for existing residential uses in the country area. And in some areas, you'll also find the RR zone, which is for rural residential uses, which again is for usually for existing residential uses within the country area. The proposal before you here today concerns an animal crematorium to be considered as an on-farm diversified use. Now, this particular crematorium would be focusing on equine and companion animals. I know one of the questions is, what is a companion animal? Well, generally you're looking at small animals, cats, dogs, but quite frankly anymore, there are different considerations of what a companion animal might be. So while the intent is generally for smaller animals, there may be the occasional potbelly pig, or in some cases perhaps a cow is considered a companion animal, but the intent is for small animals. In terms of euthanasia, that has been a question that has come up. In speaking with the agent, it's not the intent for small animals to be euthanized on site. There would be the potential for equine euthanasia on site, as one of the owners does have the appropriate license. But the intent is generally would be for bringing remains to the facility, and that would be through trucks that would go out, from my understanding, in the morning, collect the remains, and bring them back later on where they would be processed. In terms of employees, the agent and the applicant has advised it be between 6 and 12 employees, and that includes the property owner, a mix of part-time and full-time employees, and also the truck drivers themselves. The one thing I would say is this is going to fluctuate depending on, of course, the amount of work that's available at the time. And to start, they are proposing an 8 to 5 operating business day. However, they have also indicated, depending on the growth of the business, there is the potential to perhaps consider 24 hours a day of operation. In terms of the building itself, the crematorium facility would be approximately 10,000 square feet, and this would also have a 24-space parking lot. Now, just to clarify about the parking lot, I know there's perhaps been some questions of why it's so big. That is because that is what the zoning bylaw calls for, based on the size of this building. So the applicants have designed that to meet zoning bylaw minimums on there. Now, in terms of other amenity space that would be used on this property, there would be an outdoor garden associated with the crematorium. The access would be coming off of Blandford Road rather than Oxford Road 29. And the public access to the site would be limited according to the agent and applicants, and it would be by appointment only. So when you add up the building itself, the outdoor garden, the driveway, the parking lot, and also the any buffering around the facility, you're looking at a total land use of 2.37 acres. Now, the slide up here now is showing the general layout of the facility. As you can see, access would come off Blandford Road, as I said. Perhaps I'll zoom in a bit. Looking at the facility a little more zoomed in, to the east would be the rear of the property, or of the building, and this would be the section that would be a drive-through area for livestock carrier coming back there. Now, when I say livestock, to be clear, is for equine. That would be coming to the back in order to drop off the animal. As I said, there is a 24 lot or space lot, and that is to meet zoning bylaw minimums. You can see the proposed outdoor garden to the north. Just move on to there. Now, this rendering has been provided by the applicant, and this is to give the public an idea of what to expect in terms of a aesthetic point of view. Now, what you will see along the rear, which is the 4 stacks that would be connected to the incinerators, the stacks themselves would be approximately 5 meters tall on top of the peak of the building, which would be about 6.7 meters. So combined, you're looking at about 11.7 meters in terms of height from the lowest part of the building to the highest part, which would be the stacks. And again, you can see the drive-through portion at the rear of the property. It's the black section. You can see one of the trucks actually leaving the facility there. Now, in terms of comments, no concerns were received through the internal and external circulations of departments and agencies. The local chief building official did provide a reminder that building and septic permits, of course, will be required if this is approved. 4 letters of support were received from members of the public. Now, 2 have come in since the application has been processed and finalized in terms of the report. So they were not attached to the original report, but each member of council has received a copy of those. 12 letters of opposition have been received, and again, 1 has been received since the completion of the report. So again, you've received a copy of that letter. And then a petition has been received against the proposal, which included approximately 190 signatures, and a copy of that petition has been included in your staff report for consideration. So in terms of staff's opinion, we're here tonight suggesting that the proposal as presented does not follow the direction of the PPS or the official plan. We do have multiple concerns, so I've broken it down into a couple key aspects. The first is in terms of scale. The official plan does limit OFDUs to 2% or to a maximum of 0.8 hectares in terms of size. The application before you here tonight would represent approximately 3% of land use, up to 0.95 hectares. The official plan limits OFDUs to 2 employees who live off-site and shall directly involve the farmer who lives on-site. So as I mentioned earlier, the amount of employees being proposed would be between 6 and 12. So again, we do believe that it exceeds this. And we would also suggest that while the owners certainly own a farm, in our mind, they wouldn't qualify as a farmer. Our definition of a farm owner is someone who earns the majority of their income through farming practices on site and is directly involved in the agricultural component of the property. But in our opinion, that threshold hasn't been demonstrated to be met. And in terms of the maximum building size, the official plan does limit it to 6,000 square feet. And this one, of course, as I mentioned earlier, is approximately 10,000 square feet for the building portion. In terms of locational concerns, the official plan does suggest that the location of the OFDU should be within the established building cluster on a farm, and that is to try and to minimize the amount of land that is taken out of production. And it's also meant to use the existing driveway as well, which again, the purpose of that is to try and keep everything contained and limit the amount of agricultural land being removed. Now, in the event that it's been demonstrated that for whatever reason it cannot be located within the cluster or use the existing driveway, alternative locations can be considered. We would suggest in this instance that that threshold hasn't been demonstrated as being met. And what we would point out too is while there is, regardless if you build it within the cluster or outside of the cluster, agricultural land is likely to be removed. We are of the belief that it's likely that more would be removed through the current proposal because you have to build that additional driveway on there as well. And then, of course, the big question is what's being proposed tonight really qualifying as an OFDU. So just for council's, just to remind them what an OFDU is, this is the exact definition from our official plan. It means the uses that are secondary to the principal agricultural use of the property and are limited in area. OFDUs include but are not limited to home occupations, home industries, agritourism uses that produce value-added agricultural products, and electricity generation facilities and transmission systems and energy storage systems. Now, we are of the opinion that what's being proposed here tonight would not remain secondary to the agricultural portion of the property. We believe that given the scale and the nature of the business, this would be, in our opinion, the main use of the property. And the objective for OFDUs is to provide reasonable opportunities for farmers to diversify their farming operation and or supplement their income from farming by allowing certain small-scale businesses, business activities to be established as a secondary use on their farm. So just to reiterate some of the things I said, again, we do not believe that based on the definition of a farm owner that they would qualify as such. And we would also suggest that what is being presented here tonight is of a scale that is far exceeding what the intent of an OFDU is. And the last thing I would point out is that in our official plan, in terms of examples that would not qualify as an OFDU, it does state that large-scale commercial and industrial uses would not qualify as an OFDU. Of course, I'm acutely aware that what does large-scale actually mean? That can be open for interpretation, of course. But in our mind, we set scale limits for a reason. And if you're going past those scale limits, and then in this case by 4,000 square feet, we would suggest that that's perhaps not a small scale operation. So we are here to recommend to township staff that you do not approve the zone change as presented. And we're also here to recommend that you do not advise council that you support it, but rather that you do not support the OPA being presented here today. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Dustin. Any questions from council at all? Councilor Banbury.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what type of location would be suitable for an enterprise like this? Like, would it be located in an industrial development area near a city or town, or?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Banbury, in staff's humble opinion, a use such as this really is more suited towards more of an industrial area. In reviewing some of the existing crematoriums, specifically animal crematoriums in Ontario, the ones that I have been able to review so far do appear to be located within industrial parks or clusters. Now, what I would preface that by saying as well is that I have not looked at the zoning for every single lot, but if you look at the surrounding uses, they're generally industrial in nature.
Anything else from council? Councilor Dammers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the zone change,
Can you guys hear her okay? Maybe if I can just, sorry, Nancy, I just.
nope, it's okay.
Thank you.
Bad habit. If the zone change and the OP amendment are granted, it applies to the whole A2 zoned area, I assume. Is there any limitation on growth as a result of that, or how would that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Demarest, great question. So if at the end of the day, both applications are approved, Staff's recommendation would be that limitations be put on the special provisions of the zoning bylaw. So for example, limiting it to 10,000 square feet in terms of size. So what that does is if in the future the business is growing, they decide they need to add another wing to the building, if it's exceeding the 10,000 square feet, they're going to have to ask for Planning Act approval in order to facilitate that growth in the future.
Any other questions from council? I'm going to hold mine till a little bit later after we have some more come forward. Okay. Okay, does the applicant or agent wish to speak regarding this application? If you could come forward and just state your name, please.
Hi, good afternoon.
Welcome.
My name is Daniele, and I'm a planner with Celine Capriamo. So good afternoon, Mayor, good afternoon, council members, public. We are here together with the applicant and an expert that will speak later also in regards to environmental matters. And we are pleased here to present the OPA and ZBA applications. First, I would like to thank staff for their work on this file, especially Dustin. There has been a lot of discussion on this file, and I'd like to thank Dustin for all the work on this file. Next slide, please. So just giving a little more detail on the information that Dustin provided. The farm building cluster has the dwelling where the applicant lives. So he is proposing the proposed use on his lands. Also, we have constraints on the subject lands that are associated with the vegetation located to the southerly side of the lands and along the drain. So both these natural features are within regulation areas, conservation areas, and we have to apply a buffer specifically for those areas. You can see in the yellow star the approximate location of the animal crematorium. Next slide, please. In terms of the application overview, so we have submitted the OPA and ZBA just to permit the animal crematorium as an additional use and as an on-farm diversified use. And just a little bit of background information. When the applicant reached out to staff on this proposed use, he asked where this proposal would be classified in terms of zoning definitions, and it was the staff's opinion that it would be that stock removal operation, and it would likely be approved in agricultural lands. And looking at the definition for that stock, that actually does not it has the same purpose of the proposed animal crematorium. So we are just asking for a addition of the use animal crematorium to the bylaw with the proposed use defined as a facility where the remains of animals are cremated. Next slide, please. In terms of the location of the proposed use, so the applicant has considered other locations. Of course, the first one would be the farm building cluster. Unfortunately, there is no enough space within that area. The area that is currently cleared has not sufficient space to accommodate the proposed building. So he also considered areas along the northerly side of the property, and then to the west of the existing buildings would not be possible to have that because we need to meet the setback from the natural heritage and hazard lands along the drain. So that would not be possible. And also, in terms of the easterly side, you can see there is a setback that is required from the EPI zone, which is the one that Dustin showed us, that is the environmental protection area. So if we would place any building around that location, it would be too close to the owner of the lands to the east and also too close to the road and would likely require an additional driveway. And that's not something that would be feasible, especially along Oxford Road 29, and also would be too close to the existing driveway. Considering all of the constraints on the site, the applicant came up with the proposed location, and we have had multiple interactions with both the UTRCA and county staff, because we have to meet the setbacks not only from the natural hazards, but also from the EPI zone, and the location then is being placed there to avoid any of those natural hazard lands. And that's one of the reasons that we have a long driveway from Blandford Road. Next slide, please. Here you can see better what's being proposed and the location of the setbacks that are required and what exactly means the project area. When you look at the number of approximately 0.96 hectares, it looks big, but it's mostly because we have to meet, again, all the setbacks required. We don't want to be within those areas that are natural heritage and hazards. Additionally, we have to consider the well. So the location of the well is there, the septic system, and all of this is included in the project area. In addition to everything, we are also providing a 3-meter buffer along all the areas. So it also includes in the total project area. Next slide, please. Here you can see a floor plan of the proposed building. You can see the drive-through, and that's a large area that is currently considered within the building. And that's one of the reasons we are having a building with 929 square meters. You can see mostly the other areas are rooms associated with offices, washrooms, waiting area, and you can also see those 4 areas for the animal cremation, and each one of those have a stack that Dustin showed us previously, and will have a maximum of approximately 5 meters high. Again, the proposed use is to focus on companion animals, primarily horses and small animals. And again, visits will be by appointment only. Next slide, please. In terms of on-farm diversified use, it is permitted in prime agricultural lands. So what we've done is the province provides criteria to determine if a proposed use is a on-farm diversified use. So it's a long list that we need to check. We need to verify each one of the items. And here it's just a summary of that criteria. And it's our professional opinion that the proposed use is a on-farm diversified use. And for those reasons is like located in an active farm property, and the proposed location is within the lower priority agricultural lands. It directly supports agricultural operations. And providing an animal crematorium in this location would also be really positive, because it would reduce any disruption to individuals that has agricultural operations and have on-farm burial of animals. And it's important to remind that on-farm burial of animals directly impact groundwater, and also may have impact to soils, and also, again, disrupt individual cultivated fields. In terms of building size, the criteria that the province provides is that we have to have a maximum of 20% of the project area, and here we are providing a well below area. It's approximately 9.6%. In terms, again, of the project area, the guideline that province provides, it's to be above, up to 2%, and at a maximum of 1 hectare. So the threshold of 1 hectare is met, and we are above the 2% guideline. But again, it's mostly because we have to provide the setbacks to all the natural hazards and features. In terms of setbacks, the proposed location is screened from neighboring properties, not only because we are providing the 3-meter buffer, but also there are vegetation along the northwesterly lot line and all the vegetation along the southerly side. We provide the general setback from Blandford Road. It will be screened from view. The building proposed maintains the agricultural and rural character of the area. And let's assume that for some reason the proposed building, the proposed use cease. The building could be used for any farm use. Could be a barn, and be maintained on those lands. And finally, the proposal will not hinder the ability of nearby agricultural operations to continue operating. Next slide, please. So our professional opinion is that the animal crematorium use is considered a on-farm diversified use, and it is permitted in prime agricultural areas. The proposal provides direct service to agricultural operations. It provides a positive addition, again, not disrupting existing cultivated fields for on-site burial of animals. The proposed development will not hinder the ability of nearby agricultural operations to continue operating. The proposal is subject to strict provincial environmental controls, and they will obtain an environmental compliance approval. And here we have an expert that can speak more on this matter. And finally, it's our professional opinion that the proposed development is appropriate and desirable for the subject lands and represents good land use planning principles. To conclude, we respectfully request that the council recommends approval. However, we understand that there are concerns, and we are open to discuss a deferral if the council members think that's needed.
Okay.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Nobody?
At this stage?
I just have one question. I tried online looking to see if there was any other crematoriums that were in an agricultural area. I couldn't find any. I wasn't looking at, I was just looking at their locations, so I really couldn't tell what. I just wondered if you knew if there was any other in Ontario that.
So I'm not aware of any. I know the applicant has more information on this matter, especially because it's his business, so he
Yep.
could speak better on
Okay, okay. All right,
Can I ask
Councilor
one
Demmer.
question?
Yep.
Thank you. Has the applicant considered other areas that are appropriately zoned? For example, industrial zoning in City of Woodstock?
So
Is that an option?
yeah,
Yeah.
so through the mayor, I am aware that he has considered, and I believe he is better informed on this matter. I would prefer that he would speak on that matter if
Okay.
possible.
Yep, absolutely. Did you want to come forward and answer a couple questions? If you can just state your name, just so for everybody.
Hi, I'm Matthew Volkov.
If you just come, to there. Yep, perfect.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Yep, I am Matthew Bolcott. Me and my wife are the applicants of this project. I guess I'd give a little bit of backstory. This has been quite a journey for my wife and myself. My wife, of course, owns and operates a vet clinic in Woodstock, and we've had this discussion of making this proposal and pursuing this business for quite a number of years. There's been a real uptick in cremation services within the province of Ontario, primarily due to the fact that there's one large corporate entity that has basically taken over the market and has pushed everybody else out. Once they've got a foothold with all of that information, of course, costs are increasing on those cremation services by upwards of 20 to 30% on an annual basis, which is making it difficult for people that are pet owners to receive those services and otherwise, right? So we had basically had hummed and hawed on this application and starting this business or pursuing this avenue for quite a number of years, and then we finally came to the point that, after my wife has, face-to-face seen these people that are now becoming unable to get these services, it's becoming a problem. We wanted to do something about it. That's kind of what started our journey. So we started, of course, investigating into what animal crematoriums are and how they are zoned. So first we basically we were sought out to go and see how would the building department classify this. We had seen, of course, I manage and work for a construction company, so we're in the construction business. There's no clear-cut definition within the codes or the zoning as to what it fit. Our assumption at the time was that it would be zoned similar to a crematorium, a dead stock facility or an abattoir. We'd reached out to the chief building official at the time and asked for clarification on this. It was clarified to us back in writing after he consulted with the planning department that they would classify it as we had assumed, that'd be an AB zoning, which would be an agricultural business, which means it is to be placed on agricultural lands. From there, we then developed the process and we developed, okay, what would this building size look like? It, of course, starts with the cremation units themselves. They've got sizing limitations. They're quite large units, specifically when you're involving things like equine, right? These units are 8 feet long, 20 feet long, or 20 feet long by 8 feet wide, and they're sizable units. So we started building out the building to see what it would look like. As we were building out the building, of course, we were being mindful and trying to be as respectful as we could to our surroundings and neighbors, which had us include for that drive lane, which is what has increased the building from approximately 6,000 to 10,000 square feet, because that rear drive lane provides discretionary means so that neighbors don't have to see, for instance, the unloading of a deceased horse or something in the backyard. And that's basically the sole reason why that drive lane was put in, maintained as part of the project. And for instance, if you were to dial back the building size to 6,000 square feet, of course, you'd have a reduction in the overall footprint, which with the reduced parking and everything else would probably make it comply with the criteria that Dustin had aforementioned, right? So we meticulously designed this facility, pursued everything, and we've really done everything with a very open book policy. We started this process about 1.5 years ago and have really gone from a permission basis standpoint. We've reached out to council members, we've reached out to the building department, we've reached out to the Conservation Authority, we've hired experts, we've retained a full panel of engineers, architects, basically field experts in this. My wife and I went down to the United States. We became certified as pet aftercare providers so we could help further understand it. We've toured facilities and basically gained a full synopsis or understanding of what the industry requires and what we would require to be to operate a good, reasonable business as this is. So that's kind of what has us through all the various processes. The building location seemingly had made sense. Of course, our property abuts 2 different roadways. Our primary residence and dwelling, my wife and I live there. We have 3 kids. We have the barn and stuff up by the front, and it made sense, seeing as we had the second road access to, if you were going to have a business, to put it off the secondary road access. The actual position where it ended up was basically floating between different boundaries. Of course, we have 2 different conservation authorities that have governance over our property. We worked with the conservation authorities. We worked with Dustin to locate the building where it sits now, and it basically got wedged into the triangle of that one field. So the building location itself was kind of set. So once again, we've done this all with collaboration with all the governing bodies and everything else. The business itself, yeah, it is an animal crematorium, which has a certain stigma with it when mentioned to the public. We've been actively monitoring all the correspondence and communication that we've seen in the public. There's, of course, a Facebook online chat that we've been monitoring and watching. We saw the online poll. We've been monitoring and watching. We get all the issues and all the letters that have been received. I've read them all numerous times, and the main primary reason for reading those letters is to identify concerns. We want to be cognizant of our neighbors. We want to be cognizant of the surroundings around us. We also live on the property. This isn't something we want to put up this big ghastly, like not to downside on dead stock facilities, but there's not going to be animals laying in the fields and things like that. We've installed, commercial size, industrial size freezers, so everything's maintained and all that sort of stuff within the facility. All these sort of items or characteristics of the building or the business come at additional costs. So it's not like we're skimping. We're not trying to put up a fly-by-night facility. It's been thoroughly researched and thoroughly thought through. Beyond that, once again, with the concerns, most of the concerns come back to 4 primary concerns, at least from what we've been able to establish with the public. One is emissions, one is sound, one is traffic, and the 4th would be any sort of groundwater contaminants. The letters that have been received, most of them are verbatim on one another, and they all list the 4 primary concerns. I won't address the emissions or the sound things, because we brought someone from a retained engineering firm who is a subject expert in that matter, and they will present that after. When it comes to traffic, I think there's just been a general misunderstanding that when individuals from the public see 24 parking spots, they automatically assume a large volume of traffic. Those, as Dustin was kindly noted, that's a requirement. We had to have 24 parking spaces. Even if you have 6 staff parking in the parking lot, you still have to have 24 parking spaces. So, and then when it came down to the traffic, once again, there's only 6 employees, so the traffic would be minimal. The groundwater contaminants, I guess I can speak to that for a moment. There are none. Animals come, and typically the fashion or how the business operates is that the business would have relationships with veterinary clinics. So our business would go and pick up perished animals or deceased animals or pets from veterinary clinics and bring them back. So that's why there would be 2, and the business model will include for transit vans, not tractor trailers, not anything of large volume. It would be transit vans that would go to these facilities, leave in the morning, pick up from those facilities, and bring them back to ours, to which the cremation process would be undertaken, and then the remains or the cremains or ashes would then be returned to that vet clinic during the next drop-off. So there was, at most, you're looking at 2 vehicles leaving in the morning, no traffic, and then returning some point in the afternoon, depending on the duration of their visits or what route they were taking. And that's effectively the larger scale when it comes to equine and the drive-through lane. That more pertains to the equine component of things, because you might get farmers or people that have these horses that want them cremated might deliver them to your facility. So they might show up with a truck and trailer, in which case you want to be very discreet when you're offloading those animals and bringing them into the facility. Once they arrive at the facility, once again, back to they have the commercial freezer, so they're frozen. And from there, they would be extracted from the freezers and placed in the cremation units, and then the process undertakes. There are no emissions, but once again, I'll let our subject expert speak to that. So we've really tried to think through most things. Like I said, we've remained silent in reviewing comments and stuff from the community. We've basically just sat back and been trying to observe and figure out, is there something that we haven't taken into account? Is there an additional concern that raises kind of one of those aha moments that it's like, okay, well, we haven't done our best, or, designed this building to the best of our ability to accommodate any concerns that have come forward. I kind of sidetracked a little bit, but when it came to, of course, the groundwater, there is none, because once the animals are placed in the cremation unit, everything is exhausted as heat or turned in basically to ash. So there's nothing that can be seeped out of the facility. Basically, the only reason for the septic system is to accommodate the washrooms and other such functions of the building itself, not the cremation process.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else from council? No, I'm not seeing any. Okay, and then if you want to have your expert come up, and we'll have that presentation. What time is it? After this, should I take a quick washroom break? After this guy presents, before I get into the public? Or should I go right into the public as well? Okay. Yeah, okay. If you could just state your name for record, please.
Sure. My name is Sarah Pellett. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. I'm a senior air quality specialist with RWDI, which is an engineering consulting firm. I have over 20 years of experience with air quality permitting here in the province of Ontario. And I've prepared a short information session to kind of outline some of the regulatory requirements that this animal crematorium would need to comply with in order to operate, as well as some of the work that my firm has done to assist them in meeting these regulatory requirements. So next slide, please. So just a quick overview of the Ontario compliance process. So the Environmental Protection Act is the legislation that governs the environmental requirements in Ontario. Section 9 specifically states that any facility that has emissions to air and or noise, as well as other things, are required to obtain approval from the Ontario Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, known as the MECP. So for many facilities, including animal crematoria, this takes the form of an environmental compliance approval, or an ECA. In this case, we're talking about one for air and noise. So in order to obtain that ECA, the facility first must demonstrate compliance with the air quality and noise criteria that are set out by the Ministry of the Environment. The ECA applications are prepared and sent to the Ministry of the Environment, where they are reviewed and approved by professional engineers. So, and one key aspect is the ministry has the authority to inspect any facility at any time to ensure that they are operating in accordance with their ECA. Next slide, please. So to break that down, the steps that are required to obtain this ECA, this environmental permit, for air quality, first a facility must develop a maximum operating scenario. So we're looking kind of for a worst case operation that needs to be considered. We need to assess all emissions to air from the facility, and then use a dispersion model, which is kind of a computer model that predicts what the impacts are going to be from your various air quality sources on the surrounding areas. And there are certain dispersion models that are set out by the Ministry of the Environment that we are allowed to use. And we need to set them up in a way that is acceptable to the ministry as well. So the results of that dispersion model are compared to the Ministry of the Environment's air quality criteria that are provided in the air contaminants benchmark list. These air quality criteria are stringent and set to protect the most vulnerable members of the population. And they apply at any place off-site, so regardless of land use. It doesn't matter if, it's a residence, if it's a forest, an empty field, or a roadway, the same stringent air quality standards will apply. So once we've done kind of all that work, we package it up in what's known as an emission summary and dispersion modeling report, and then that package gets sent to the ministry for review and approval. So for this particular facility, we have completed the air quality assessment. So on the right here is a diagram that shows what we've considered. So we've kind of blown up the building here to show some of the details. So you can see on the left-hand side is the actual building on scale, and then the center part is the blown up area. So in our assessment, we've considered the 4 incinerator stacks that are shown there in green. And as part of our worst case maximum operating scenario, we've assumed that all 4 incinerators are operating at maximum capacity all the time. So when we're doing our air quality assessments, we specifically set them up in a conservative manner. So that means we're trying to layer on the worst case assumptions on top of one another to make sure that we are capturing the worst case that could happen. So the actual conditions, as we heard earlier, they're typically operating 8 till 5. The likelihood that all 4 would be on all the time at maximum capacity is low. We took in order to assess the emissions, the facility isn't built yet, we use published emission factors that are based on testing of other facilities to approximate what emissions to air would be coming from the operation of these incinerators. These same emission factors we have used previously for other crematoria applications. And they have been accepted by the Ministry of the Environment for use. We combine those with so the blue line on this figure shows the property line of the facility. So we set up a grid of receptors that aligns with the entire property line and extends out for a 5-kilometer radius from that, which we use to predict the air quality impacts. We also take 5 years of meteorological data, so 5 years of weather data, and we use that in our model. And then we take our worst case day out of that 5 years. So we've got our worst case operations, we're taking the worst case conditions out of 5 years. We put all that in the model. It predicts the concentrations. We take the worst case location anywhere off-site, and then that's the value that we compare to the air quality standards. So when we do that, all predicted concentrations were below all of the applicable air quality criteria. And so that's, I think we looked at, approximately 15 different key chemicals that are coming from this facility, including particulate, which would include, dust and ash. So there's a standard for that as well, and they're in compliance with that. Next slide, please. So similarly, on the noise side of things, there's a lot of similarities. So again, we're looking at a predictable worst-case operating scenario, which is essentially all potentially noise-causing equipment operating simultaneously. So that would include things like ventilation fans, chillers, the incinerators, traffic, all that sort of thing. They're all assessed together, and we use a specific noise propagation model, so another computer model to predict the off-site concentrations. And the Ministry of the Environment also has noise pollution control guidelines. So in this particular case, it's located in a rural area with, low traffic levels, and so the class 3, the most stringent limits apply. Again, all our work is done. We package that up into an acoustic assessment report, and that gets submitted to the ministry for review and approval. So next slide, please. So this is a summary of the noise assessment results. So again, noise has a slightly different set of rules. So we look at the residences, as in terms of noise receptors. So we look at both the buildings themselves as well as the closest outdoor living area property. And the blue lines here are the noise contours. The outer line represents 45 decibels, which for that sound level is essentially if you had a room such as this, two people having a conversation with one another, staying next to each other, that's about a 45 decibel sound level. So, within, we're also demonstrating that we're well in compliance with the noise criteria that apply in this location. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, we've completed the air quality analysis, we've completed the noise assessment, we've packaged that up, we're finalizing the paperwork to submit to the Ministry of the Environment, is where we are today. So once that's submitted, within 1 to 2 months, the ministry completes their screening level review. That's basically a checklist to make sure that all the pieces are there. If the reviewer has any questions or comments, they will respond back to us. We'll be required to address those comments before it moves forward to the next step. After that, it goes to an air quality engineer or a noise engineer for their detailed technical review. In that case, they will be doing a deep dive into how we calculated our emissions, how we did the modeling, does it comply with ministry requirements. Again, if they have any questions or comments, we are required to address those. Once the ministry reviewers are satisfied, they will issue the ECA. That ECA will include conditions that the facility will need to meet. It is a legal document. Those conditions may be something like you might have to have a maintenance and operations plan, complaint response procedures. They may require stack testing to confirm the emission rates. They may require noise audits to confirm the noise levels. Again, that's all to the ministry's discretion. But the facility would be required to meet any requirements that the ministry sets out. And that's typically from the submission to the receipt of the ECA is approximately a 1-year-long process. Once the facility has their ECA in place, then they're required to operate according to their ECA. Again, it becomes a legally binding document, and the facility is subject to Ministry of the Environment inspection at any time. So the inspector will come in, they'll review the ECA, they'll review the operations and make sure that everything aligns. And that kind of is the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you very much for your time. Do you have any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from council?
She just answered my question.
Okay, Councillor Emerson.
One of the items that's come up in some of the letters that have come to council, in addition to emission and sound, is smell. Do you assess that at all in your, is that part of the air quality assessment?
It's not directly part of the air quality assessment. Again, there are some of the chemicals that we look at do have odors, and some of the standards that the ministry sets are based on the odor levels that could be produced by those chemicals. Essentially, when the ministry sets the standards, they look at a bunch of different criteria. They look at, what would be the limit for health, what would be the limit for odor, what would be the limit for vegetation impact, and then they take the most stringent of those to set the standard with. Again, from work at other crematoria that I have worked on, as well, the odor tends to not be an issue. There's not a lot of odors associated with the actual process because it's such a high heat and things like that.
So I didn't hear the last thing you said?
Oh, sorry. Because of the high heat of incineration.
That's the high heat?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from council? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Okay, so I'm going to open up the public meeting now. I'm just wondering if the expert wants to stay up here, maybe if there's questions, and maybe the agent or the owner, if you want to sit up here, because I'm thinking a lot more of these questions maybe on a technical matter. and maybe you can answer that question as well, as we have our planner here to answer anything as well. Once again, if you can come up one at a time, please state your name at the podium here. Please be respectful and address council or the experts, not the audience, okay? And on that, I will open it up. Come ahead and state your name at the podium, please. Yep, that's good.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Council, members of Blandford-Blenheim staff, and the visiting public. My name is Dave Robertson. I'm a resident of Blandford-Blenheim, and I live approximately 2 kilometers west of this location. As we all know, west is the prevailing wind, so I will refer to myself as downwind of this proposed crematorium. I'm here today to state that I'm opposing this from various views. I believe that reading over the current application itself, I don't know with a 10,000 square foot building where that's referred to as a sort of a pet crematorium. To me, this looks like it's going to be a larger operation. Basically, with the applicant's own information here, it's generally said intended for equine and companion animals. However, they said they are going to open it up. They could open it up to other animals, and it looks like it could be run 24 hours a day. In my opinion, I believe that this is something that will be could be operating on a large scale basis. First and foremost, the land itself is zoned A2, which is general agriculture. And I don't believe this is the best interest, as our planner has already stated. There's many problems with that. This council and county has already demonstrated their opposition to converting agricultural land. Also with increased traffic, Blandford Road is a secondary road, and if future development is concerned where there's larger trucks coming in, Blandford Road is a half-load road, and for example, if they're bringing in large quantities of trucks that are oversized, Blandford Road is a half-load road, and my concern is that there could be damage to the township road. There's a water course that runs through this, and I've noticed conveniently that it hasn't. I've been watching this presentation, and this water course hasn't been brought up. There's a water course that actually still has water in it. I checked today. It flows meters just north of the proposed location, and this water course empties, goes right by the proposed the site. And the problem with this is this water course empties into the Thames River, and approximately 1 kilometer downstream of this water course on the Thames River, there's Thames River melons. They use this to draw water for irrigating crops, food that we all eat. My concern too is also with the handling of carcasses. I know right now they speak to just pets, dogs, that type of thing. They've presented a scale of how they will accommodate animals that are brought in, but my concern is if they grow larger, there's been nothing mentioned of how they will handle this, what will be done. Also with the burning of gases, I understand too, there would be 4 incinerators or 4 chimneys. Again, the problem I have with this whole thing is, if it's a small scale, like a mom and pop operation, why is there 4 chimneys involved? Why is this building 10,000 square foot? I have submitted with my letter of opposition. There was a study done by the New England, and I have submitted with my package that everyone has been affected with, and there is no guarantee, even with the new incinerators, that the release of gas, diseases, won't be directly emitted into the air. As a resident, I live 2 kilometers, and this is one of my concerns. Also too, there's very limited government monitoring as far as when it comes to environmental protection. Most of it is based on complaint, or it is based on the self-reporting of the occupants themselves. There is no, quote, police that will attend this place on a weekly basis to ensure compliance with the Environment Protection Act. Also, too, with my concern too is handling of animals and carcasses. if something is operating 24/7, the problem with that is at 2 o'clock in the morning, for example, if they're running on a 24-hour basis, there is nothing preventing a farmer from another jurisdiction from hiring some private company to bring in and offload potential carcasses. The concern too with carcasses that are brought in, there's nothing stating that this is just going to be secluded to Oxford County or Blandford-Blenheim alone. There's a high probability that animals are going to be brought in from other parts of the province, maybe from the country. These animals could be infected with different viruses, as we know, pigs, cows, avian flu. These are all things that are now going to be imported into an agricultural area. I feel that this is a bad area to import these things. As we all know, human error is possible. And when you have humans, we always have human errors. We look at the 401, we look at anywhere, there's always an accident, and now all of a sudden we have a spill. In agricultural land, now we have possible contaminant and we've imported from, say, Manitoba, some form of animal flu. So now we've got this right in the heart of our own area. The Nutrient Management Act of Ontario, 2002, OREG 106-9, speaks to, which I haven't heard any reference to that here yet, also speaks to, as far as when an animal is brought in, the decontamination of the vehicle that was transporting it in. Section 23 states that after a vehicle or transport container is used for transportation of a dead animal, the vehicle and trailer, as the case must be cleansed and cleaned and sanitized. Now, if this is done on site, and again, we know in human nature, if there's laziness, all of a sudden these contaminants now end up in the water source. So again, I have not seen anything that in this presentation that's addressing any of these issues as well. So those are my concerns. I know I do speak on behalf of myself and my wife, who is out of town at this time, but she's authorized me to speak on her behalf as well. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Did you want to comment on any of the concerns that he had, either one of you?
Yeah, I don't know which one specifically to identify. There was kind of a lot there. Most of the things when it comes to, there's been concerns brought up about, sterilization and things like that. Avian flu has been thrown around. Anyone that's familiar with the avian flu knows that those animals have to be basically taken care of on site. You can't transport them. So they can't be transported all over the place. And the general nature of the facility, the incinerators operate at 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. Anyone knows anything about sterilization? Sterilization happens at high heat. Hence why they use an autoclave or something like that in the medical industry, because high heat sterilizes it. So the plan isn't to bring in contaminated things from other areas. Effectively, anything that goes into the incinerator instantly gets sterilized. So there's also we made mention a couple times about 24 hours. The units can't operate 24 hours a day because of the nature of the units. So it's like they're like a 4-wide basically fire brick, and the units have to basically cool down for a certain period of time throughout the day. They can't run at high temperatures at all times. They have to cool down and they cycle. And depending on which unit you're using, for instance, let's say you're using the equine unit, which is a single chamber, so one animal at a time, one unit. The process to standard process, of course, it varies on the size of the animal. It could be upwards of 6 or 7 hours for that unit to, finish its process. So there isn't, kind of the idea or thought for a 24-hour operation. There's also been comments about expansion. As Dustin keenly noted before, the 10,000 square foot was kind of the request for the ultimate size of the business. We've included for everything in that shell. There is no opportunity to expand. We can't expand. We also know there's limitations on the gas service at the road. So you can't run even one more incinerator for basically, we've been told by the local gas supply, that's it. You can't add any more, right? I think that answers some of them. I don't know about the documents that have been stated. I'm not familiar with the various acts and otherwise. That's why we've retained the council and the engineers and the professionals that we have to ensure that we're in compliance. So regarding the emissions, the units are required to have a continuously monitored electronic emissions control system on them. So each stack has its own computerized system that monitors the emissions at all times. If the emissions get out of whack, the unit shut down. That's an additional requirement for the industry that we're in. They're very expensive units, and they have to be monitoring at all times, and you have to keep the data for up to 5 years. So it's not like we can be hiding anything. It has to be monitored, like there's protocols in place. We have to follow it or the facility shuts down. And if they don't comply with the emissions, the unit shut down. So if something is out of whack for whatever reason, as the kind gentleman from the public mentioned, things can happen. If something happens with one of those units, it automatically shuts down. So.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, I just wish to address, I'm not sure what he mentioned, but in his own report, he has mentioned that it's, will be, or could be operating 24 hours a day, so
Yeah.
that's the only reference I have made for that. And as far as risk to the operation of the incinerator, it is that there is a human still at the end of a computer. And if there is not a human monitoring something, keeping a track on it, I understand the computer is shut down, but there is still a factor, there is still a risk factor involved. And in a sensitive area that's in an agriculture, I just don't understand why there's other suitable areas that are zoned agriculture, that are zoned industrial, that are more suitable, that are put the other general population at lesser risk, so.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to take it.
No worries, thank you very much. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I forgot to clarify one item that was brought up before by the council members. There were two. There's one operating pet crematorium in Thames Center that operates just south of the 401. It is an on-farm diversified use operating on agricultural lands. There used to be, up till about 4 years ago, there was actually an equine cremation facility operating right close to downtown in Dorchester, also on agricultural lands. That facility closed down, and since then, those lands have now been designated something else because they were looking to expand the city or something. So, but those were both actually suited and outfitted on agricultural lands.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, anybody else wish to come up to the mic? If you can please try to ask a different question that's already come forward, that'd be great, thank you. And if you could state your name, please.
And councillors, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Jen Glasser. My husband and I live at 775-810 Blandford Road, which is the property adjacent to the proposed animal crematorium site. We have proudly lived in Innerkip and invested in this property for the last 15 years, and we are deeply concerned by the proposal of this official plan amendment and zone change application. Factories specifically of this nature do not belong in agricultural Innerkip. Our concerns are vast and include the fact that the official plan amendment and zone change applications that proposes this factory and animal crematorium does not meet the applicable criteria for on-farm diversified or agricultural related uses as previously presented. The official plan states that townships may be more restrictive when it comes to criteria for what types of on-farm diversified uses they would like to see permitted in their communities. We are here to specifically ask of council to be more restrictive. Based on our research, animal crematoriums are commonly designated to industrial zones due to the nature of the operations and the potential human and health environmental impacts, both known and unknown. In fact, the owner of the application, as mentioned earlier, the veterinarian clinic in Woodstock currently uses Gateway Pet Memorial, which is located in Guelph, and it's located in an industrial basin. As are all of the animal crematoriums that I've researched located in London, Kitchener, Toronto, Ottawa, and Smithville, Ontario. I've even found Alberta and British Columbia's animal crematoriums are also operated in industrial zones. My husband and I have been to Gateway Pet Memorial in Guelph on a number of occasions. Different days of the week, different times of the day, just to get an idea of what to expect, what it looks like, sounds like, and smells like. And I can assure you that it is disturbing, to say the least. There are 0 family homes, 0 villages, and 0 schools nearby any of those mentioned locations. The factory facility is also approximately 10,000 square foot, and their 4 exhaust stacks are constantly on, either emitting vapor from heat or black smoke when the incinerator that uses combustible fuel is burning animals between 1,400 and 1,600 degrees, as Mr. Bocott has said. Despite this proposal being a brand new facility that will, of course, require ongoing monitoring, Research shows that pet crematoriums emissions, particularly mercury and fine particulate matter, potentially pose short and long-term health risks through air and food contaminations, potentially leading to neurological issues, respiratory disease, and increased risk of heart disease. I've read articles stating that the bioaccumulation in the food chain should be a real concern in agricultural areas, as the mercury released from crematoriums can enter and convert to methyl mercury in water bodies, possibly affecting the creek on the perimeter of this proposed location. Now, I realize that GRCA is involved, and I realize they protect our waterways, but what happens when it's too late? Let alone the water wells. We have excellent water on our farm, on the farmlands that surround us, that grow the food we eat, or feed the food that we eat. Reports say exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals are released during cremation, particularly for those exposed during early development, which may lead to reproductive problems and other issues in adulthood. We all have multi-generations of families enjoying our properties, and our school is not that far away. I feel we all have a responsibility to ensure the safety of our families, of our community, and of the future generations of Inukit. There are reports that state animal incinerators and crematoriums can be noisy, with a sound as a constant blowtorch, a hum, and whine, as well as specific vibrations, possibly affecting the health and the well-being of residents. The furnace fans, motors, and stacks are always on. It's not a pretty sight, and it certainly is not an environment boasting healthy country living. It's quite interesting that there's been no mention this evening of how many large trees are going to be cleared to build this factory. There's a whole tree line. Oh, there's no map up anymore. There's a whole tree line there. And no mention as to what size of ample trees, quote, would be needed to plant in order to, again, quote, shield visibility and maintain a low-key presence. 4 emission stacks on the 10,000 square foot building spanning 2.37 acres is not a low-key presence. There was a time not too long ago when the effect of wind turbines on animal and human health was considered safe, which we all know now not to be false. I am not comforted by the fact that there will be monitoring in place at this factory. We all know that industrial problems and disasters happen. In April 2013, Woodstock Council voted against a proposed crematorium for Bisham Industrial Park for reasons of similar concern, despite being proposed in an industrial basin. We are rightfully concerned about the precedent-setting action not voting against this proposal could initiate in Blandford-Blenheim. How many more factories might be on a horizon if this one clears the path? We are here to ask Council to represent the public and act on the guidelines created to maintain our agricultural integrity, help us preserve the health and well-being of our family, our neighbors, our community, and our investments. We specifically ask Council to prohibit this and any future large-scale industrial use businesses from setting foot on our prime agricultural lands and in our community. At the very least, we ask Council to vote against this proposed official plan amendment and zone change application, and as though this factory was being proposed for your backyard. I don't believe anybody in this room, aside from those with significant financial projections, want to wake up to, live by, or invest in a property near a factory, let alone a crematorium. Factories belong in industrial basins. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you very much. Is there anything you'd like to comment on that, or anything from council?
Yeah, no real further comment. I believe we had addressed most of those concerns previously. Once again, we're kind of bound by the governing bodies over this. The tree mentioned was a new one, of course. It has already been reviewed by a landscape architect, reviewed the species all within, and blessing has been granted by the governing authorities, with the conservation authorities. So we've worked very closely with them on our property for quite a number of years. We're very passionate about our trees and stuff like that. We plant numerous trees a year and have worked with the conservation authority, both with clearing, with stands of ash trees and things like that, and then replanting in other areas. Right, there are existing trees along that tree line. Some are living, some are not. But once again, we've sought approval for all of those things prior to showing them as being removed.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else that wishes to come up and speak? Please come up and state your name, please. If you can try to keep to something new,
I'll
if you
keep it,
can.
I'll try to keep it short.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Cheryl Corniger, Mayor, council members. My name is Cheryl Corniger. I own the farm directly across from the proposed site. My family have owned it since the 50s, and I have huge concerns with this. Now, I'm not going to repeat a whole lot of what's been brought up. Jen and Dave did a great job with my concerns, but I do have some just questions, so rather than rehashing stuff. Why does the entire farm need to be rezoned A2 SP? Why not just the area being questioned for this proposal?
That's what was asked of us by the planning department. And it was originally, actually, the original proposal that we proposed to the township, or request, was to actually rezone everything to AB zoning, which was what we were told the zoning was, what we required for that. Once again, agricultural business, agricultural lands. And it was the recommendation of the planning department for us to go through an A2 special because they felt they would have less impact on the property itself, seeing as it is a special designation. So you can only have an animal crematorium. If it was zoned AB and it went through, we could change that zoning. We could put a dead stock on the facility or another far more inconvenient business on the property. So it was a good suggestion from the planning department, and we followed suit with the suggestion.
Okay, so dead stock can't be on an A2 SP,
That is correct, yes.
but other things could be put there.
With the A2 special in this current application, the only thing that can go on there outside things that are zoned for general agricultural would be an animal crematorium only.
Okay, perfect. You said that they have to shut down your stacks. How long is the cool time, did you say?
It varies depending on the size of the unit. So there are 4 different units proposed for this facility. One is an equine unit. The other 2 general units that are in the open area are actually 6-chamber units, which meant the growing concern with people that are having animals cremated is they want one animal to one chamber so that, of course, your cremains aren't getting mixed with other animals. So
there will always be at least one stack running.
no, not necessarily. Once again, it would depend on volume and things like that.
You're 24/7 or not.
Correct. I mean, most people, and then the 4th unit, the small unit, is designed for private cremation so that if someone wanted to attend the facility and be present, so that unit would definitely only operate at best maybe once or twice a day. Other than that, it would be shut down.
Okay. For the noise, you mentioned the 45 decibels. That is all the time, because that's not just the stacks, that's like all the 24 hours, or basically every time, that's all the time, right?
It would vary. So again, that assumes that all the equipment is running simultaneously. So that includes all the
That's the
stacks.
max.
That's the max. So, and there may be some things like, it would include things like building air conditioning. So there's going to be certain times of the year that's going to be running, there's going to be certain times of the year that's not. So again, we're looking at a worst case scenario with everything on.
Okay, so there would be a constant hum from something out of that though, and if the hydro's out, then it's going to be the generators that are going to kick in to run all these freezers. But there will always be noise.
Yeah, there will always be some level of noise, but what was shown was the maximum. So again, if you think about it, any building, any house will always have some level of noise. It's going to vary from time to time. And again, the results of the study showed that even with everything on, we're well below that 45 decibels at the residential locations.
I'm really concerned about the water emission. I know you said there is none, but again, there's going to be washing. They're going to have to wash the inside. They're going to have to wash out these trucks that have the animals that creep. So there's going to be water, and there is that creek that runs right beside that property. I really would like to ask council to not proceed with this. If this belongs in an industrial area, not an agricultural area, that's been mentioned over and over. I'm not going to go on about it, but I really would hope that council takes into consideration this and what the county has said as well and turns this proposal down.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there, yep, go ahead.
Just for clarification, I don't know if you have it offhand, Sarah, what is the average decibel rating from a roadway?
I don't have that number on hand, but again, that would be above the 45 decibels, because again, a 45 is about, you and I having a conversation in this room. That's the level that we're talking about, and that level was below what you would hear, like the level of the surrounding residences is lower than that.
Okay, anybody else like to come up? Okay, he's going to come up, and then you come up right after, okay?
Evening, Council. My name's Bob Shoemaker. I live about 3 kilometers, I have a farm 3 kilometers from the property. Couple concerns. One is Blandford Road. They've added traffic on Blandford Road. That road is terrible to start with. The shoulders are about 2 feet wide. I'm worried about trucks. I know they said transit vans, but I don't know how many horses fit in a transit van. My next question revolves around fire. I know at that end, we're in the westerly end of Blandford-Blenheim, we get our services from East Thora. Is there any price tag that goes along with that would come onto the taxpayers of Blandford-Blenheim if a building of this size was to catch fire? That's just something
I know the answer to that, but I'm going to let our fire chief maybe expand on how our boundary agreement goes as far as, if you could maybe just come closer. Sorry, if I can get you to come closer to a mic, that way. Pardon? Yeah, if you want to come to Tina's spot here, we can. This way I get the exact answer.
Yeah. So where this property is located, yes, Interkip does come out there for everything except for medical. Drumbo is automatically tiered as well. EZT is there for the first hour, and then the transition is over. So the initial response is Interkip, but Drumbo is tiered at the same time.
Okay.
Yep.
And there'll be no change in pricing that we pay them since now we're moving into an industrial setting? So we're basically having an industrial fire versus a farm building fire?
Mm-hmm. The cost associated with that is generally given back and provided to the insurance company to cover, and we try to
insurance is there.
We try to recover our costs that way.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. See, I knew he could answer that question better than me.
In my opinion, at the end of the day here, what we're all kind of missing out here is that I don't consider this a farm use at all. It's not, like, if you drive around the township and you look around, there's a lot of small farms like this that aren't being used on farm uses, and people are getting away with that sort of thing. That's got to kind of stop, I think, because we're putting industrial businesses onto farm property. This is not going to be just cows and horses going in here. It's going to be pets, stuff like that. And pets aren't farm uses, in my opinion. So that's where I think we're kind of losing touch here, is that it's not a farm use. It's not a farming operation being run on this property.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think there was a person back here. Yep. Yeah.
Perfect.
Hello, my name is Carol Littlejohns. We live about a half a mile away from where that's going to be done. And I'd like to thank the mayor and council for listening to me and the public. My main question is, and hasn't been mentioned at all, about the storage and the excessive ash that's going to be presented by this system. And all the chemicals that are given to these animals to be euthanized or being treated with an illness with the disease they have, and that is a different drug, and then if it fails, they have to euthanize the animal, and then there's more drugs that are going into the ash and into the environment. Like, I haven't heard a thing about storage, like what do they store, or where do they store this ash? And is it picked up or removed regularly? And then another question too is, have they even considered of putting the crematorium in is the construction part there of Woodstock? I don't know the word for it, but that is another question. But, and the ash, that is a big issue.
Yeah.
Like, how do they remove it?
So I can maybe answer a little bit, or you can, but I think the ash, so it would be just like if you, I know I just had my dog cremated, so you get it cremated and then the ashes come back to you. Now, I don't know if the ashes always come back, some people just, so maybe that's the part you're more interested in. What happens if the ashes don't go back somewhere?
Yeah, so if the ashes aren't returned back to the pet owner, there's a number of different facilities that those ashes can be transported to for proper disposal. There's pet cemeteries, not locally, for instance. There are ones out more towards the Guelph Way. There's also different institutes and stuff that the ashes can actually be donated to and turned into, basically mixed with cementitious material and things like that. For instance, there's a couple of organizations that you can donate the ashes to, and they make like offshore artificial reefs and things out of them. So there's a numbers of ways that those ashes can be disposed of if someone just wanted a general cremation but didn't want the ashes returned to them.
But is there any residue from the drugs that have been given to the animals in the ash?
No, because once again, the process operates at such a high heat, it sterilizes absolutely everything in the chamber.
So where do you store it when it's done?
Prior to or after? After the ash would be stored within the facility until we sent it elsewhere.
In bins or?
Typically, it would go in bags, and so you can identify it, yep, and then it would go into another storage facility or a storage drum and then go to wherever else it might resume its end of life.
Because a horse does exhume a lot of ash. Excessive.
Correct, it's about a small chest worth, depending on the size of the horse.
I heard Rubbermaid tubs, because we had a horse done. We had a horse done. My daughter taught riding lessons, and a horse broke its leg. It was taken to Dorchester, actually.
Correct.
And she got it cremated, and she had Rubbermaid tubs of ash.
Well, I'm glad you support the process, because we'll be the only facility in Ontario doing it now.
Well, we went to Dorchester. They're still got the...
They're closed and rezoned.
They are. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
But that was my main concern.
Okay.
About the ash.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else here? Yep, if you can come up, please.
Yeah, I didn't sit here for 2 hours and left the field. I'm actually a farmer. Okay, well, this will be a little interesting. Can you look at me for a second? You're not a farmer.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, let's just keep it civil, okay? Please and thank you.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Keep going here. So we have the property just to the north, and I know the map's not up here, but it really doesn't matter. We just built a new broiler barn a couple years ago, had to drill a new well.
Can I just get you to state your name just so she can write it down?
Tyler Bomershell.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, we have really good water in this area. It comes right off the Thames River. It's only like 60 feet deep. We hit like 55 gallons a minute, so it's a great well. The other thing that nobody's talked about here is that, I know you gotta kind of beat around the bush, but it's called Trout Creek. Trout Creek, get that through your head. That's what's running right alongside where you want to put this facility. Okay, so just north of that as well, there are two natural springs that run right along Oxford Road 29. Not a lot of people know about this because my grandfather could tell you, but you're so far removed from the land that you're really just not connected with this anymore. So those water springs, we can't even drain them in the field off the south side of the road. You are so close to going to a deep water contamination, you have no idea. Okay? Now, if you want to, take this back a bit, and let's see. Our family, it's a bit of a judge of character here. So what people do in certain situations driven by greed and money, well, right on the corner of that property, we were approached 10, 15 years ago. We could have put that big cell tower up on and got paid, however many, 30, 40,000 a year. Well, no, we're considerate of our neighbors. So we want to do what's right for the community. We want people to smile when I drive down the road and wave to them from my tractor, okay? So let's just drill down to the core of this. This family, I know they have land in industrial areas. Why is it not being proposed there? Why in the hell would you want to put this right? Like, you're gonna change the landscape. This is absolutely ridiculous. My son is 7th generation here to this country, and I hope that he gets to farm. Well, you know, it's just absolutely absurd. Sit here for 2 hours, 45 minutes of it, text my dad back and forth, wondering when are we gonna get to this public meeting? Anyways, it's just a real piss off, and you know, you don't even have to wind me up.
I'm sorry, if you can keep the language down, please.
Whatever.
Please keep it down or I'll...
Nutrient management.
Excuse me.
Nutrient management.
Excuse me.
Nutrient.
Excuse me. I'm speaking to you, okay?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm
Please keep
speaking
it,
back.
please keep it down or you're done. Understand? Yes, I'm not joking.
So how many decibels is this?
It's gonna get even less because you'll be out the door. Do you understand me?
Nutrient management
Excuse me.
strategy is what I'm
Do you
talking
understand me?
about. Yes.
Thank you. Please be respectful. You were told at the start. That's the last time I tell you or you're asked to leave.
So the other part, we just go right down this list here, okay? So, what's next? Well, we got dead stock at Hickson. I realize that is not a pet cemetery. But have you ever passed those dead stock trucks? Yeah, you gotta roll your windows back up. It's not good. It's not like, it's really, really frustrating. I get told this all the time from my wife that I need to try and tone it down. So I'll just do that for you, Mark. So as I speak, I actually become more relaxed. Oh man, stress. Okay, so let's get back to disease contaminants to our broiler chickens. So avian influenza is #1. I don't care about what. So the other thing is that, like, when our birds show up to the barn, they're all vaccinated and protected. Most people's pets in that, they're kind of open to whatever comes into that facility. So I don't know what you're driving in like half-mile right beside us, but when we have AI outbreaks in the broiler industry, they shut down miles. So I want that right beside my new broiler barn to contaminate it? Like, oh man, like it just goes on, and it's frustrating to have to actually leave the field to come here to explain this to people. You know, like it was kind of refreshing to hear right off the bat that this is just absolutely ridiculous. But I'm just gonna wrap this up because there's not really much more to say other than I just want you to remind you that you're not a farmer. And I don't know how it is that you've somehow got this, you're gonna go through this process being rezoned. Like, man, don't piss people off. That's the moral of the story. Be a good neighbor. Go do this somewhere else. And keep looking up at the ceiling, you know.
Can you try to be respectful, please?
I'm done here. I'm gonna go
Okay.
back to work. And then I'm gonna go and do chores. So
Okay.
anyways.
Thank you.
You guys have a great night.
Okay, is anybody else would like to come up and speak, please? Okay, last chance? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you very much. All right. Are there any members of council that have any questions or require any further information to this clarification? No?
No, I think so.
Not seeing any. Councillor Banbury?
Well, I'm just wondering about, a lot of people nowadays are being cremated when they pass away, after they pass away. So what are the rules and restrictions when it comes to human crematoriums? Does anyone know that?
That's a completely
Apparently
different.
You can shake your ashes out any place you want, in a park or throw them in the river, whatever.
There's, a completely set of regulations and stuff around human cremation. So for instance, we could never, of course, cremate a human in
I'm
the...
not suggesting
Oh,
you
but
do that.
scattering the ashes, the scattering of ashes and stuff, once they're returned back to the pet owner, it's at their discretion. They could be spread on their property, they could be buried, they could be housed on an urn on their mantle, they could do whatever they wish at that point because they're basically an inert thing at that point. They're just ash. They could be spread through farm fields if you wanted to because they don't damage anything, but that is not the intent of the property. Once again, they'll be sent to a facility, but once they get returned to the pet owner, it's at their discretion.
I'm just wonder why there's a concern here that these ashes are going to create an issue. This one?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councilor Banbury, I'm certainly stepping out of my expertise a little bit here, but my understanding when it comes to human crematoriums is that the process is different in the sense that my understanding, in order to have a human crematorium, it needs to be a willing host. Something needs to come from the municipality indicating that they're a willing host of a human crematorium, where when it comes to animals, that's not the case. But that's really the limit of my understanding of that.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment on the environmental side. The same stringent standards apply to both human and animal crematoria. They're both held to the same air quality and noise standards. And I have done work on some that are in, for example, a large cemetery that borders a residential area, kind of in a suburban or the borders of a large city.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anything else from council at all? Councilor Ramey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, do you ever intend to create a pet cemetery? I realize it would just be for ashes, but
No, that is not the intent. The intent of the kind of memorial garden that's shown is basically, and it was strategically placed off the north side of the building because that's where the private cremation unit exists. It's basically so it gives an exit for a grieving family to, once they've lost their pet, they can go out and privately be by themselves in that kind of garden area. That's why it's fenced and garden to that extent. That's why there's also strategic parking on that side of the building so they don't have to really see anybody after they do that.
Okay, anything else from council at all? I'm just going to make a comment. Emissions and sound, traffic contamination, they're all legitimate concerns. But I think the biggest thing for council that we have to look at here is that what we're really looking at is sticking to the planning matter. So that being whether we think it's on-farm diversified use or not. That is, I think, the biggest question here for all of council, not so much the other concerns right now, but that is ours. So in saying that, we have to decide, is this a secondary business activity that supplements a primary agricultural operation? And that's really what's on the table here for us to decide. The other issues, if we decide to vote yes, then those are issues that we can deal with other side. But the main issue here is we have to decide if that's the issue or not. So. In saying that, where are we here? Okay, any final comments? I'll leave it to council now. Okay, we'll come out of here. Okay, go ahead. Oh, I'll have to say this first. This application will be dealt with by council as regular meeting immediately following this public meeting.
Be it hereby resolved that the public meeting be adjourned and that the regular meeting of council reconvene.
Can I get mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councilor Demers, second by Councilor Banbury. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, so now council needs to make a decision. What's your thoughts? There's, I guess, three things. It's yes, no, or if there's a lot of information that come forward that you'd like to compile, you can defer it to another meeting. Those are kind of the three options that I think are on the table.
There's so much information to take in right now, so to me, I think we should defer to absorb all the information.
Yeah. Is that council's thought, or what's your thought?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm fine with that as well. I think the incremental information with respects to some of the technical aspects that were introduced here today are something that, as Council Barnes said, need to be absorbed and considered. Because we didn't have a report ahead of time, I think we might need to think on that a little bit.
Okay. All right, so just to clarify to everybody, so some of the information that come out here tonight, we never got it any sooner than what you just have. So as council, we like to make a decision that's an informed decision, because I'll be honest with you, if we say no to this application today, it could go to the land tribunal, but that is their opinion. But I would like to make an educated opinion on it so that we're right at this point. So council's decision is to defer it. We will have that resolution here. It's not saying we're yes or no. We're going to put it ahead to another meeting so that we can think of all that information that was presented tonight. Okay, go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that the Council of Township of Blandford-Blenheim defer the decision regarding the application for the official plan amendment file number OP 25081 submitted by Matthew and Jacqueline Bocott for the lands legally described as Part Lot 6, Concession 6, as in 503194, except Parts 8, 9, 10, 11, Registered Plan 41R 3091 STBD 9457, Township of Blandford-Blenheim, to include a site-specific policy to permit an animal crematorium as an on-farm diversified use, OFDU, and further, that the Council of the Township of Blandford-Blenheim defer the decision regarding the zone change application file number ZN1-2505 submitted by Matthew and Jacqueline Bocott, whereby the lands described as Part Lot 6, Concession 6, as in 503194, except Parts 8, 9, 10, 11, Registered Plan 41R 3091, STBD 9457, Township of Blandford-Blenheim be not rezoned at this time.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, sorry, going to move her to seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Banbury, second by Councillor Demarest. All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. So everybody that's here, if you want to find out when the next meeting is, if you could sign the sheet at the back or the rear of the door. I am going to pause the meeting at this time, so give everybody time to move on if they wish. You're allowed to stay if you wish. I'm sure it's you have nothing more exciting to do than come here. But I really want to thank everybody that's here. I know this is a very contentious issue to all of you, as well as the proposed people. But I just want to say thank you for pretty much, we almost got through the whole thing without any issues. But thank you very much, and please sign the sheet, and we'll be able to let you know when the next meeting is, okay? Thank you very much, everybody. And if we could pause the meeting now. We're ready to go? Okay, thank you very much. We'll get back to our meeting here. And we have correspondence general.
Be it hereby resolved that the general correspondence items be received as information.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Barnes. Any comments? Questions? All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, and staff reports. Ray's staff report. And CEO is going to do that? Thank you very much.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is the monthly staff report for the chief building official for the month of August. There was 20 permits issued during the month of August. Nice to see that. I will note one of the more substantial permits that's listed is the new fire hall, Station 81, located just north of Princeton on Township Road 2. Otherwise, happy to answer any questions council might have.
Okay, any questions from council? Not seeing any? Okay.
Be it hereby resolved that report CBO 2509 be received as information.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Banbury, second by Councillor Demens. Any comments? All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. And next is Jim Borton, Director of Public Works. Welcome, Jim, on your monthly report.
Evening, Council. This is my monthly report. So capital work, Princeton Phase 4 is going. Curbs have been put in from Emma Street North, as well as all the side streets through there. They're currently working on sidewalks and base gravel, as well as they're working down in the south end to tie in the last little section of the main drain. I know one of the hot topics has been dust control down there. This line item is in the contract. We are after the contractor to get dust control down. He has promised many times to do it. We keep going after him, and we will continue to stay on him to get whether it be water or the dry flake down that is in their contract to put down. So that has been heard, and we are actively working on to make sure that happens. Bridge 24, the EA study. The majority of the studies have been completed and sent to the Indigenous partners to satisfy any of their concerns. Fisheries and Oceans Canada DFO, there have been the next hurdle. We've sent our original plans to them. We have heard comments back regarding some fish habitats that may require an additional marine study, and we're just waiting on information on when that study can be completed. With this latest delay, it may delay start till 2026. But we were hoping at least they'll get it all tendered so that it's ready to go. We may still see construction in 2025 in December. It will depend on how quickly we can satisfy those comments from DFO. Our road association was on break for the summer. We started back up in September. We met in Tilsonburg. So we have a joint winter maintenance training coming up later on in October. As well, we discussed the half-load season. We're looking to go so everyone has the same dates across the county. Ourselves and Zora start on February 15th, which is earlier than the rest of them. They are looking all to start at that time. And then we may also look at, there is, OGRA does have a program where we look at coming off early depending on weather reports. They have a scientific, with the weather rating, how much frost is in the ground, how cold it's been, kind of a 20-day forecast. So we will be looking at that as well. And if it's determined that the frost is out of the ground and we can open that load from half load sooner than we currently do, we will be looking at that as well. That's something we'll do as a collective, as a group, so that you're not driving through Blandford-Blenheim and the road is open and get to East or Tavistock and their road is closed. If it does happen, it would happen as a whole Oxford County. Our Oxford County Road Association, so this is association that put on the road show, or the trade show in the springtime. We met again on the 18th. Obviously, the trade show was very successful. We did just get our financials for that. I can't quite announce it yet because they're not quite official, but just so that council and the viewers know, 75% of the, whatever we make, 60% goes to AORs, 40% comes back to the local association that hosted the show. That 40% will then be given back to community. So what as a group we've decided is 75% of that money will go to the 3 hospitals. The remaining 25% will be split up between all the food banks within Oxford County. So we will have announcements very soon on totals on where that money is going. As well, we had our AORs meeting. I'm currently the sitting second vice president. We had our directors meeting to discuss where we've been for 2025, looked at new training ideas for 2026, and projects where we'll be in 2026 as far as financials go. Drain superintendent, obviously now with the harvest happening, he's starting to get more phone calls. Our staff, working very hard. Township Road 12, a project that we've been working on, taking the fill, that excess fill from Princeton to build up that road, as well as grading, grass cutting, regular maintenance activities. 2 of our staff members, Sean Crozer and Dennis Bolt, qualified to compete against other drivers throughout Ontario at the AOR's Provincial Truck Rodeo that was held on September 24th. This was the largest one we've had. We had 49 drivers. So each association, so Oxford as an association can send 2 drivers. So Elgin sent 2, Middlesex, Waterloo region. So in total there was 49 drivers that competed. Sean and Dennis, this was Dennis's second time at the provincial, Sean's first time. They finished middle of the pack, which is pretty good, pretty respectable, but it's a lot tighter than our local association. Just to give you some perspective, there's a total point system of 370. The winner this year was from St. Thomas. He also, when we do our local, we combine it with Oxford, Elgin, Middlesex, and Haldimand, Norfolk. He was the winner from our local as well, with a score of 366, so he only missed out on 4 points. At the provincial, he was the winning score at 301, so he just broke the 300. So that gives you kind of an idea on everything is a lot tighter, stiffer competition, so the guys did well. One last thing I will bring up that is not on my report. We have an emergency guardrail repair. This happened at Bramer Road and Township Road 9, the bridge there. This is our boundary road with EZT, so it is 50-50 cost share. Unfortunately, we're not sure how it happened. It was a vehicle accident that took out the north side and was spun across and hit the south side as well. We did pick up some car parts, however, there was no reports made, so we don't know who actually caused the accident or caused the damage, so we will unfortunately have to flip that bill where normally we would go after the insurance company. But right now we're in the process of getting some quotes to go through the procurement policy, but once we have those, we'll be looking at doing that repair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions? I just have, well, first of all, just a comment, but congratulate both of them on behalf of council on a job well done. And it's nice to know that they'll be the ones that are out there keeping our roads clean and safe for us in the wintertime. So thanks to both of them. With this dust control with this company, can we just tell them either you have it done tomorrow by 4 o'clock or we're doing it and we will take it out of their fees? Because it seems like this is like they were supposed to do it last Friday, and then they're supposed to do it again, and it's just like they're not doing it. So if they aren't gonna do it, somebody's gotta do it, because it's absolutely horrible over there. Like you can't even tell what color a car is after 2 hours. So somebody's gotta put something on, whether it's water or calcium, but I think they should have to pay for it if it's in the contract.
So there's a line item in the contract. That line item is only used when they put that product down. If we put the product down, obviously we're paying for it. We're not paying for it through the contract.
Right.
So if council's direction is for me to order calcium and put it down, I can certainly look after that. However, we have no means of going back at the contractor.
Isn't there something in there with their, I don't know, if they don't do the job that, like, I know, I'm not familiar with those kind of contracts, but I know, like, if somebody doesn't finish a subdivision, or for example, that, like, I know we plow the subdivision down here, and they pay us for doing it. That's why I just kind of wondered if that, I'm just getting frustrated with it.
Yep.
If I may, Jim, perhaps you could explain to council just the contractor's obligations within the contract for the application of calcium or similar products. What's that line look like?
Yeah, so we do have a line item in the contract that states to them that they must apply dust control, that it must be flake or water, and then we give them a rate that is acceptable that they bid on when they bid for the contract. So if they don't do it, they don't make any money from it. That being said, we don't have any recourse to go back and say, well, we told you to do it, you didn't do it. If we go and do it, it's at our expense.
But
we
we
don't-
otherwise have to pay the contractor. 'Cause it's a
Yes,
line item.
yes.
Right, okay.
You know, it's kind of frustrating, because, you know, when I look at, you know, when you take the lowest tender, for example, I can't remember how close the tenders were, but if there was no plan of putting it down, so they didn't put a cost in there, and the other ones put a cost in there to put it down, then the tenders aren't the same. Like, it's not apples to apples. So I'm frustrated that there isn't a day that I don't get somebody calling saying the dust is horrendous here. What can we do about it, right?
Yeah.
And we keep telling them the contractor's doing it. Of course, I don't think they have any plans of doing it at all.
Yeah, so the line item is there. They had to put a number on that line item. If we go ahead and I put calcium down tomorrow and they do not put it down, they do not get paid for it. They're not getting that money just for not doing anything.
Yeah.
They have to, we approve, they submit their invoice according to the contract.
Right.
Line by line,
I see what you're
on
saying.
what expenses they've done in order to get paid for it. So if they mark it on there, we know that they haven't done it, we're obviously going to refuse to pay that.
Right. Do you know what a cost would be to put, whether it's water or calcium? I don't, like,
Not off the top
That's a
of my
big-
head.
that's
I
a
mean, we
big
have our dust control contract, so it would be a matter of reaching out to them. I'm sure it would be the same price that we get for our large bulk that we
Yeah.
do in the springtime. It would just be coordinating with them to get a truck to come in and,
because they're really calling for nothing again for another, possibly Monday, but they're not calling for anything for at least another week or more. And I think we need to do something, whether it's water, whether it's calcium, I don't know. But I think we owe it to the residents of Princeton. They've put up with dirt for 3 years over there. I think we owe it to them to do something. I'll leave that up to council's discretion if you want to say, you know, put water on at least, or if you want to look at calcium. I don't know what council's thoughts are. Is it something we could do in the next day or so if we say let's
it
do it?
would probably take me at least 24 hours to arrange to get a calcium truck. We do have water trucks. I would have to have one put back in, so there would be some time involved in that, but obviously we could look after getting that.
Did Yukon have to do any watering last year?
They
when
did, yes.
theirs?
They did lots.
They have a water truck, I noticed, where they're working east of Woodstock, there on Dundas Street. Obviously, this outfit doesn't have a water truck.
It's just very frustrating that, to me, it just looks like they had no plan on doing it, no matter what. And this has been one of the driest summers we've,
Yeah.
you know, Go ahead,
Do
Councilor.
we still get calcium from Enbridge or the gas wells? Are they still doing that at all, or?
No, we've tried to reach out to them before. They have their own disposal of it now.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah, because that would be nice and handy if we
Okay, we used to get it from them once in a while, get the brine from the gas well, but, okay. yeah.
Does council want to give any kind of direction, even if it's just water that we spray over there, or what's? I think we need to do something. That's my personal opinion.
How much longer is it going to take before they're ready to put the pavement down? Are they getting-
It'll probably be close to the end of the month before base pavement is down.
Also, a whole month yet.
And you're looking
And they're
like,
predicting pretty dry weather.
yeah, it's horrible. I know. There's hardly a day on social media you don't read about the dust. I think of I hope people are looking after their air conditioners, because just the veins on the back of that, if they're not cleaning them out, the amount of dust that's going on there, I feel sorry for them, I really do. And especially when, the other contractors have all done their due diligence and done it, and this one doesn't want to seem to do it. So, does council want to give any direction to say, put water on at the very minimum, or what's your thoughts?
I don't know if,
What's the quickest?
The quickest?
Yeah, what we get through the quickest, like just to get
Water
on
doesn't
it.
last very long. That's the problem
Yeah.
with water.
Yeah.
I got to
And-
be doing it all the time.
Yeah, I
And
guess
that
what
would
I'm
be
thinking
my
is water's quick.
recommendation too.
Do water and then follow it up with calcium, because it's a month, right? Like we need, yeah.
I think, could we not just order a truck and pump it off onto our trucks and do it that way?
Spread it with your
I don't-
truck?
We can spread it with our truck. For that, I would just have a tanker run right down the main street a couple of times.
Up and back, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we'll probably be obligated. Obviously, we'll need a full load, so we'll have some that we could pump into one of our
Yeah,
tanks.
keep it on hand if we need some more, eh? Yeah.
Is that, so I guess, do you have even just a ballpark what that's going to cost? I don't mean the manpower, because I guess they're there working
It's
anyway.
no incremental cost, because
No.
if the contractor did it, we would have to pay for it.
True,
So
true.
there's no real
True,
additional cost.
True. right,
We do it, other than your guys' time.
yes.
Yeah.
And they're there anyway, right? I know personally for me, I would say we give direction to Jim to somehow, if we can try and get it before the weekend, I know it's tight notice, but if we could get something on there, I think the residents of Princeton would
Yeah.
greatly appreciate having something done.
I agree.
Yeah.
I've gotten a few calls too about it.
Yeah.
That's, Mark usually gets them all. but-
Well, it's frustrating when we post it, they said, yep, we'll do it, and you post it online the very next day, of course, my phone's ringing off the hook, it's 4:30 on a Friday, and it's like, well, I know it's not gonna get done now if they haven't done it.
They spread it in front of 2 houses.
Yeah, they had like 20 bags and sprinkled it on, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, so what I'm hearing is council would just provide that sort of blanket direction to the Director of Public Works
Yep.
to proceed with water and calcium application as soon as possible.
yeah, okay?
Yep.
Don't
Perfect.
sell the farm to do it, but
No, but, yeah. Denise is counting pennies over there right now. So. It'll come off, it's gonna come off your budget in another couple months when you come forward. Okay, perfect, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that report PW 2516 be received as information, and further, that council directs staff to supply and apply dust suppressant in the affected areas of the village of Princeton as soon as possible.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councilor Banbury, second by Councilor Barnes. Any comments? All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's good. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Trevor Bear, Manager of Community Services. For a couple reports. Welcome, Trevor.
Welcome. Thank you.
Long day for you.
Yeah, just here to do 2 reports tonight. First report is CS 25-17. It's to do with the arena water softener replacement. We do have an arena water softener at the front of their building. Platzo water is very hard. It's about 1,200 grains of hardness to 1,600 grains of hardness. It's forecasted to be replaced in 2028 in the reserves, but having a professional company come in, look at it, they are recommending that we replace it because we can't get parts for it anymore, and leaving it that long will just wreck everything in the arena. So we do have the money in the reserve funds for it. Just would like to push it up sooner. And it's between the $14,000 and $17,000 mark for this softener.
Perfect. Any questions from council? No, not seeing any. Okay.
Be it hereby resolved that report CS 2517 be received as information, and further, that council authorize staff to proceed under the township's procurement policy to purchase and install a new water softener at the Plattsville Arena with funding to come from the Arena Reserve.
Okay, can I get a mover and second, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Barnes. Any comments? I'll make one comment. I know you and I have talked about the water there. I might as well let council know I'm going to put a notice of motion on the floor at budget time at Oxford County to move the treatment portion of the water that's, I think it was scheduled for another 7, 8 years from now, or 9 maybe. I'm going to put a notice of motion on the floor at budget time to move just that part of it, not the pipes to Bright at that time. That's the expensive part, I think, of the thing, but whether it goes through budget time, I don't know, but because it takes a few years to go through that whole process, right, to get it from where it is. So we really need to do that. It's I've had so many people talk to me about the hardness of the water over there. This is another example of it. We were told here that night, I didn't know, but it's the hardest water in all of Canada. That's municipal water. It's the hardest water in Canada. So anyway,
Every plumbing company that comes in says.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know that's going to be coming.
We keep them employed.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, and your next one.
Yep, just my monthly report, CS 25-18. Just the arena operations. The arena's running. Everything's running pretty good in the arena. Most of our groups have started. Just giving council an update that the ice is back in and things are running pretty smoothly. Parks seem to be busy still in September. We hosted the co-ed tournament and the adult men's tournament, year-end tournament, and we had the Drumbo Fair happen. Overall, everything went pretty smoothly. We're seeing more requests for our parks later in the seasons now, with baseball being requested more we've got October, the end of October, we have baseball teams coming here. So there's lots more requests for the parks than there ever have been. So operations are changing maybe. Met with the Drumbo Lions Club to review and discuss the Drumbo Playground project, the accessible project. We'll be releasing RFPs in the next coming weeks. We're still waiting on staff to we're waiting on the supplier to get materials for the Princeton project. We're monitoring this situation and we will let the council know when we get the approval of the dates when they're coming. So we will be releasing a tender for the canteen at the Plattsville Arena. Just no public tender for people to bid on the arena booth that we haven't ran in a while, so that we haven't operated. So see if there's anybody out there that would like to operate the booth. Yeah, and we've had ongoing discussions with Early On and the Drumbo Agriculture Society about moving forward with that program too.
Okay, any questions or comments? Questions on that report? No? Okay, go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that report CS 2518 be received as information.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Barnes. Any comments? All in favor? And opposed, if any, and that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and next is Denise, our Director of Finance. Welcome, Denise.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My report this evening is in regards to the budget survey that was just completed at the end of August. So we have the results. We did have 149 responses, which was close to last year's. And last year we saw a 125% increase over the previous survey that was done. Very similar results. The current level or improvements, 73.48% of respondents, and they were rated fair to good, and that was up 2% from the last survey. The top 5 priorities were very similar to last year. The ones that were common were infrastructure, roads, bridges, and stormwater, affordable housing, safe communities, police, and waste management, curbside collection, garbage and recycling. And then the one that is new to the survey this year, our top priority was safe communities, paramedics. Some of those are at the county level. It is a shared county township survey. There are comments, lots of comments. I do encourage council and staff to read those and when considering the budget.
Perfect, thank you very much. Any comments from, any questions from council? I'll get it right yet. Any questions at all? No? Okay.
Be it hereby resolved that report TR 2513 be received as information.
Okay, can I get a mover in a second, please? Moved by Councillor Banbury, second by Councillor Demers. Any comments? Just the one comment I make, I know CO and I've talked a little bit about this too, is maybe bringing our own one that's township specific, because almost all of that is county specific, which is fine. The need is there. I'd like to see it as well, but it would be nice to maybe another year have a township specific one so we can get drilled down maybe just a little bit farther. So, okay, all in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, our next report is Kevin, Communications Coordinator and Deputy Clerk. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I'm pleased today to present Report DC 2513, which recommends installing a third flagpole at the Township Administration Office and updating the flag protocol policy. At present, we have only 2 poles, one for the Canadian flag and one that alternates between the Ontario flag or community flag. This limits our ability to display both the Canadian and Ontario flags at the same time, while also recognizing local initiatives. From a flag etiquette perspective, it's not appropriate to fly more than one flag on a single pole. Adding a third pole will allow us to follow proper protocol while providing space to recognize special observances and community events. Staff have obtained a quote of $4,300 for supply and installation to be included in a future budget cycle. The revised policy would keep the Canadian and Ontario flags permanently displayed and reserve the third flagpole for recognizing community achievements, cultural observances, and other significant causes. This change would enhance civic pride, provide flexibility to honor local organizations and important causes, and support council's strategic plan for an engaged, inclusive, and informed community. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions from council? I just got one, I'm not sure. I know flags have to be, like the Canadian flag and the Ontario flag are always supposed to be higher than other flags. I think, if that's proper protocol, so I'm just wondering if this pole has to be, I'm just throwing this out there, does it have to be slightly shorter? I don't know.
Not to my knowledge, but we can order a slightly shorter flagpole.
I don't know if we have to, but I thought there was something in the,
I think the Canadian flag's tallest and
yeah, something had to be,
shorter than the other one.
yeah. I know if we're doing protocol, that if that is part of the protocol, I don't know if it is for sure, but I thought I read that somewhere.
Sure. The federal government does have a flag protocol policy for the Canadian
Yep.
flag specifically. The province doesn't quite have one, but they refer to the federal government's policy
Yeah.
as an example. So we can review the federal government policy
Yeah,
to ensure
absolutely.
that we're following proper flag etiquette.
Yeah, and that's,
flag
when we're talking, I guess, the flag etiquette, I guess, let's make sure we're doing it properly. If it has to be a little bit short, it's not a stickler thing, but I'm just saying, I thought I had somewhere that it was supposed to be that, so, okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that report DC 2513 be received as information and that council directs staff to include $4,300 in a future budget cycle for the purchase and installation of a third flagpole at the Township Administration Office. And further, that council adopt a future revision to the flag protocol policy to include the installation of a third flagpole as attached to report DC 2513.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Barnes, seconded by Councillor Banbury. Any comments? All in favor?
Just a quick comment.
Sorry,
if I may.
absolutely,
I just
sure.
want to note for council that that third clause of the resolution to include in a like that policy adoption would be contingent on budget approval of the flagpole.
Yep.
So, okay, just so everyone knows.
Whether
Yeah.
it's this budget, the next budget,
Yeah.
the next, whatever.
Yeah.
A budget meeting. Okay. Okay, all in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, and our last report, Sarah Massa, Director of Corporate Service Clerk, frivolous, vexatious, or unreasonable complaints policy. I think I actually said it right.
You did. Good afternoon, members of council. You have before you report DC 2514 regarding a frivolous, vexatious, or unreasonable complaints policy. The proposed policy will establish a formal process for dealing with the complaints that unreasonably consume a disproportionate amount of staff time or resources, or that might be intended to embarrass, annoy, or abuse. The proposed policy is meant to protect municipal resources, staff services, and from being overwhelmed or misused. Unreasonable, frivolous, or vexatious behavior from the public may hinder the township's ability to govern effectively, fairly allocate time and resources to other important issues and projects, and to deliver high-quality service in an equitable, efficient, and effective manner. The proposed policy will help guide staff in determining frivolous, vexatious, or unreasonable behavior by providing examples right in the policy. The proposed policy outlines the steps that may be taken through a procedure that includes documentation, communication, and reporting. Members of staff will review the conduct on a case-by-case basis and determine whether restrictions to staff to township staff are warranted. An appeals process is also included in the proposed policy. Staff will always make every effort to meet and exceed the expectations of the public. The proposed policy will be implemented on rare occasions where interactions escalate to warrant the use. Having this proposed policy in place ensures that any restrictions to the rights of the public is done fairly and in accordance with due process.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that? Go ahead, Councillor
Did
Bamber.
we not already have a policy along that line? I remember years ago, we had an issue.
Public nuisance? We have a public nuisance bylaw, yes, whereby you can be charged for.
Oh, okay. So that kind of is similar to this.
This one's a continuous complaint policy, is sort of.
Yeah, do you remember that?
I do remember that, yep. Okay.
This is probably more encompassing anyway, so.
Yeah, this policy is more where it's directed at staff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where complaints are coming in.
Yep. Okay, anything else? Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demers, seconded by Councillor Banbury. Any comments? All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that's carried. Okay, reports from council members. Anybody have anything? Go ahead, Councillor Demers.
Just real quick, I just want to congratulate the Drumbo Agricultural Society on a fantastic Drumbo Fair this year. There's a huge amount of people there, but just personally, I talked to people from Mississauga, Stratford, Durham, all over the province. So we really, the Egg Society really does a phenomenal job of getting the word out there, and I've never seen an event so perfectly orchestrated and organized. So shout out to them. It was a great 2-day weekend, and anybody that got a chance to go, I'm sure, enjoyed it.
Absolutely. I couldn't believe the amount of kids that were there. It was unbelievable. It's the most I've seen, and I don't think I've ever seen. I don't know if they've got their numbers out yet for the amount of people, but I'm sure it's got to be well above last year for sure. So, okay. Anything else from council? One thing that we need to do, and Bruce, I'll let you do in a second. I was handed this to me, just a few things that are out. Fire Prevention Week is October 5th to 11th. There's a Bright Open House, October 4th from 11 to 2 p.m. A Plattsville Open House from October 11th from 12 to 3 p.m. And there'll be food, fire prevention, and demonstrations at that. And I have it here if anybody wants to look at it after, okay? And Councillor Banbury, you wanted to bring up about Remembrance Day for people.
Well, I had someone inquire who would be laying the wreath at the Princeton Remembrance Day service. It's only a little over a month away.
Yeah.
Hard to believe, but anyway, they're making preparations. Edna Williamson used to make all the arrangements, but she's in the hospital, I guess, so.
I had the Drumbo Heritage Society ask me as well for Drumbo. I told them I'd do the Drumbo one. I think they're running it this year, so I told them I would do the Drumbo one for them.
Did you take part in the ceremony for Remembrance Day?
Well, I laid the wreath last year, and I'll do it this year if no one else is available, but if you would rather do it, that's fine with me.
I can do it, but
Okay.
for instance, you have first right of refusal, Bruce. Yeah, whatever. I'm
Well, I
fine.
got enough time, I can book it off, so
Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so Bruce, you're going to do Princeton?
apparently.
Okay. Trevor, is there one at the Plattsville School still? There was one at the Plattsville Park? Okay, so did you want to do
Yeah, I
Plattsville?
can do Plattsville. Mhm.
You want to do Chesterfield like normal?
Yeah, I'll do Chesterfield.
Okay, and I'll do the Drumble? Yes, it's the Sunday before. Yep. Yep. Okay. Now, okay, do they still have, I think Jerome Lions bought a brand new one last year for, or, oh, maybe that was just for the Lions Club one, but, yeah. I don't know if they still stock them at the school. We'll have to find out about that. Okay. All right, now will we let the clubs know who's doing this? They're in the wreath? You'll look after,
Just to know,
okay, and do you want to look after, everybody look after their own, where they're going? Let them know that they're going? Okay, perfect, got that done. Okay, anything else under reports from council members? Okay, anything unfinished business, motions, notice of motion, new business, closed session, we have none, bylaws.
Be it hereby resolved that the following bylaw be now read a first and second time. A, bylaw 2515, 2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council.
Okay, can I get a mover and a second, please? Moved by Councillor Demmer, second by one of yous, Councillor Barnes. Any comments? They're playing with me today. All in favor? And opposed if any? Trying to get my heart rate back up. Okay, go ahead.
Be it hereby resolved that the following bylaw be now read a third and final time. A, bylaw 2515, 2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Demmer, second by Councillor Banbury. All in favor? And opposed if any, and that's carried. Okay, and adjournment to nothing under other, and adjournment to the next meeting.
Whereas business before council has been completed at 7:13 PM, be it hereby resolved that council adjourn to meet again on Wednesday, October 15th, 2025 at 10 a.m. for the council staff capital project road tour, with the regular meeting to begin at 4 p.m.
Okay, don't forget 10 a.m. for the road tour. And we better let Tina know
Go ahead,
too,
once
just a
again.
reminder. I think it went out, I think you sent it out, a calendar reminders anyway. Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? I knew I'd get you quick. Councillor Demers, second by Councillor Banbury. All in favor? Opposed if any, and that's carried.